So first of all, I would like to say hello and welcome to everybody to the Visiting Filmmaker Series online, curated by Associate Program Director Cynthia Fuchs, who has joined us. Yay, Cynthia.
Hello, Cynthia.
The Visiting Filmmaker Series, sorry, I haven't memorized my lines yet.
Well, you know what? Take it again. Make it happen. Okay.
The Visiting Filmmaker Series has brought films and artists to Mason for 20 years. Now, in its new online incarnation, we're bringing these artists to your home screens. The Visiting Filmmaker Series online is sponsored by Film and Video Studies, CHESS, CVPA, the English Department, School of Art, Global Affairs and Global Programs, CVPA's Criticos Series, Arts in Context, University Libraries, Film and Media Studies, the Interdisciplinary Curriculum Committee, History and Art History, University Life, and Women and Gender Studies. Our guest today, as everybody knows, is the hero and legend, Effie Brown.
Oh, look at
round
that.
of applause.
Oh, my goodness. And people are like this.
Golf claps.
Right, exactly. All right.
Effie has asked me to ask you guys to please put your cameras on. We want to talk to faces. We need some like personal contact. But while Effie's talking, mute your mics just because it's loud sometimes. So I'm going to also read Effie's bio, and then we're going to off to the races.
Go for it.
Effie T. Brown is the CEO of Gamechanger Films, which is a film equity fund that was launched in 2013 and the first film financing fund by and for women. Now, under Brown's leadership, projects included have been expanded for by and for women to by and about people of color, the LGBTQ plus community, and people with disabilities, as well as its expansion into television and digital content. Brown is also an award-winning film, television, and digital producer, known for her highly acclaimed multi-platform repertoire, as well as championing inclusion and diversity in Hollywood, both behind and in front of the camera. Brown has produced several critically acclaimed films and award-winning projects, including Real Women Have Curves, directed by Patricia Cardosa. Cardosa.
You're good.
Thank you. Dear White People, which won the 2015 Independent Spirit Awards for Best First Screenplay. I will also note that it won the 2002 Sundance Audience Award and Special Jury Prize for Ensemble Cast.
Oh,
yeah. HBO's, oh, did I miss? I'm sorry, I'm not very good.
We're going to be talking about it. I'm sure we're going to talk about all of it. But you can keep reading, but it's okay. But we can.
HBO's Project Greenlight, executive produced by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, which we watch in my producing class. Yay! And many, many others. Effie has 57 credits on IMDb. Prior to Gamechanger,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay. Cheers. Prior to Gamechanger, Brown founded and founded probably.
Too.
Right?
That's real out there in these streets. That's true.
Duly Noted Inc., a company dedicated to groundbreaking narratives that use genre to challenge and advance our culture in a disruptive way. Brown's dream is to change the world through film and TV, celebrating our differences while bringing us close together. So, first of all, I am going to say I know we all want you to come in real life one day and have a whole big on life of Effie. We'll carry you around on our shoulders and the whole 9 yards.
On that diet, then if you're carrying me on your shoulders, then I'll pull it together. Okay.
They're very strong.
I like it. Yeah. Okay.
Today, we're going to narrow the focus a little bit to financing projects and financing films in particular. And my students just read last week all of the textbook assignments and watched all my little video assignments about financing films. So this is the perfect timing for them. So I guess, like, where do we start? You want to make a movie, you've got an idea, you've got a script, and then
wow, yes, it's so interesting. Did your whole screen go to just people's initials?
no.
Okay, well then I guess mine's having a moment. Did yours do the same?
Mine did, yes.
Okay, good.
Just for a minute, yeah.
Thank you. I'm like, am I a crazy person? Okay, so I am a crazy person.
Sugar.
It is. It's a sugar. It's coming for you. So yeah. So let's. However you'd like to begin. We can go. However, how are you guys making short films? Is that part of their assignment?
Yeah, the students
call on random people just to make them see if they're paying attention.
Yes.
I love that. Daniel Taylor. I see you. Hi. Are you making a short film? You're on mute, sir.
Not at the moment.
You're listening to
Me personally, no, not at the moment.
But are you guys perfect? Thank you. See, I like to keep you all on your toes. But is part of your class of them making a movie, Lisa, or?
My class is producing. So my producing students, we've been a little derailed this semester, clearly, but they get
Right.
we do the substantive learning in the class, and of course we watch Project Greenlight, which we hang on every word at every minute. And but they also get extra credit for producing someone else's film. I encourage producing, directing, writing, acting.
Okay, cool. So I mean, however we want to, begin. I've actually, from the come up, if we're keeping this on the, financing side, because everyone always is curious about, like, how do you get the money? How do you get the money? And that's always really helpful for me. Like, maybe, I don't know, I'm used to Zoom. I know we just discovered the chat. Very interesting. Good job, Joshua. But like, if there's a way, if they wanted to ask questions, do you know what I mean?
It might be good to start out by talking about your recent appointment as the CEO of Gamechanger.
I'll go to that.
And to talk about how Gamechanger is a game changer.
Sure. So that's even easier. So here's the skinny. I'll give like a little bit of I call it a qualification or a little bit of backstory on myself, which will sort of bring me to here. I've been independent producing or freelance producing for a very, very, very long time. And I've had a lot of successes, or things, I always call it paper successes. Like, wow, every time you've gone to Sundance, you've won Sundance. You've done this. You've been on, you've like on paper. I'm like, wow, I am fancy. I'm on the board of Film Independent. I'm in the Academy. I'm in the museum. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, yeah. But like in IRL, in real life, every time I wanted to make a project, it felt like I was starting over. It felt like every success that I had was like a fluke to other people that had money or were going to finance me. And, and I've been Black. A lot of my story is about being Black and being a woman, obviously. And so for myself, it became to the point where I was like, wow, on paper, I have quite a lot of experience. I've won a lot of awards. I've made people over $100 million, right? And I made people over $100 million. Why? Doesn't it sound, all sounds, I've been around a long time. It sounds great, but the truth is I'm like, well, why am I like sometimes struggling to pay my mortgage, right? Why is it sometimes, or to pay like my car payment? And I always believe, like, whenever I'm talking to folks, like, don't be tweeting. This is really me talking to you. You know what I mean? And like, I want to be able to dive deep and get real. But like, this is what, you know, this is what it looks like. And I was like, there is not parity here. I mean, going back to being like, there wasn't parity here of like, I'm making people a lot of money. I have a good reputation, but somehow I'm not able to get that, you know, to be able to leverage that. And I would be looking at my counterparts of like Patricia Cardosa, who did Women Have Curves, or other filmmakers that I'm working with. And I realize that most of the filmmakers that I work with are either women, people of color, or LGBTQ, right? I haven't worked with, you know, yet with anyone from the, you know, who with the disability community, you know. So I was like, what is this? What is this? And then I became really apparent. I did a Disney Channel movie called Zombies, and that was what really broke me, and in a good way, but broke me in a way where I was like, if the mouse ain't gonna give you a shot, you know what I mean? If Mickey isn't gonna like be kind and generous and, you know, and fair, then like ain't nobody. Like, it's game over. So that's when I realized, like, you know what it is that we need money. We need our own money and resources. And until we have our own money and resources, we will never, and this is, I'm speaking in generalities and I'm speaking for myself. So that's why I wanted to be a conversation where I feel like until we have our own money and our own resources, that is the only way that we will have the leverage to have an equal playing field, period. This is show business, it's not show charity. Everybody's always talking about inclusive and diversity, but at the end of the day, you have to look at this and to say, who's profiting off of this? Do they have, and we'll talk a little bit about this, and I don't mean to sound too radical, but I think that's kind of where we are these days. Of like, let's call it what it is, you know? And when I go like, well, who's making money off of this? Like, I look at like, here's something, and please don't tweet, or, you know, this is between us, like Black Panther. So Black Panther made a shitload of money, right? Now, I'm not supposed to know this, but my brother does insurance, right? For all the big films. And he goes, and this is what, and I'm going to curse a bit, and I don't mean to, but like, it's just who I am. He goes, fuck.
Okay.
Great, perfect.
All of my LA people, just for all my students, all my LA people coming in, you're going to hear some F-bombs and all this.
Exactly. It's about to get real. So my brother was like, fuck Black Panther. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, we insure all those Marvel movies. We insure them all. And go like, and remember the first Thor and all of those things that didn't have anybody in it? They made more money than most of those people that did the Black Panther. And I said, are you kidding me? He goes, yeah. He goes like, nobody knew who those white people were. But like, literally, they got paid more than like Forrest Whitaker, Angela you know what I mean? And I was like, what? And he goes like, yeah. He goes, nobody, no, like, I do insurance, so we have to see the budget and everything, you know, of how things are made. And then that's when I was like, damn. And then I was like,
See that budget.
yeah, right. I would kill to see it too. And I was like, but like it, but this is the thing. And I was like, who made that money? The producer did, Kevin Feige, right? I think his name is, who's the head of Marvel, right? He ain't Black. He's not a woman. He's not a person of color. You know what I mean? He's not a person of color. He's none of those things, right? But what's happening in this business now is that people are starting to realize is that underrepresented groups show up. We show up to the movies. We show up and we support. Like, I don't know how you guys feel about Tyler Perry. I feel all kinds of ways about him and his previous work. Yes, I see. Is that Akisa? Yes, girl. Okay. Thank you. I saw that face. You know what I mean? Where we had that moment where you're like, oh, but we showed up. We thought it was garbage at the beginning. Like, anyway, he's gotten better. You know what I mean? But like, but we show up. But the thing is who's making that money? And then that's when it became to myself of like, I've done, like you said, 50 something credits. I made somebody over $100 million. And I'm like, why am I, and I had to get real, like, oh, I'm a tool. I am a tool for the machine. And I believe in equality. I believe in diverse voices. And I believe in that films and television can change the world, that it can build cultural bridges. And right now we are divided. Like, you know what I mean? We are divided and we need content. But the problem is that people are now exploiting us to tell our stories but we're not able to get paid for them. And it's not that we're being greedy or we want it's to be able to leverage up and to say, okay, now that I'm taken care of, I can bring somebody with me, right? Instead of always being hand to mouth, hand to mouth, hand to mouth. You know what I mean? We can be like, whoo, I now have some money where I can break off and invest in my community or invest in another voice, right? So, which is what I've been trying to do my whole career when I work with first timers or people from underrepresented communities, period. Like I've done that before, like for like Jamie, like back in the day, like back in the day, you know? So I was like, I'm going to raise money from my own film fund. And so I was like, that's the only way that we're going to be able to make this happen. So I was raising money for Duly Noted Inc. And I got a $50,000 grant from a place called Cinereach. And Cinereach saved my life because it was at a time after I had a terrible experience on this Disney movie. I had money saved from that. I got this unrestricted grant and I was able to actually do, and this is what I called it, like my soap opera year, like we used to see like the ladies in the soap opera, like where they get to like read and write and scream at the waves and like have their best life. And I'm like, I'm gonna have that. And I
Montage.
yeah, the montage of like, this is what it is. It's gonna be great. So I got a big business plan put together, and I had to have this moment of visualizing. And I'm being a little long-winded, but we're gonna dial it back into the things that I think that if I knew then what I know now, so I'm telling you. You know what I mean? So you don't have to go through all this. It's the visualization and coming up with the plan. I did not have the time until 2018 to come up with my plan of like, okay, this isn't working. I will always be a tool for the studio, for HBO, for Screen Gems, for big directors, for Netflix, whatever. I will always be a tool unless I can come with my own leverage, my own, like I'm an owner in this. I am not a worker, work for hire. I am an owner. So I made a big business plan and I started raising money. Now, you know, it's also really hard why a lot of times, like why a lot of women and people of color and underrepresented groups are used instead of being able to be, to have agency, let's call it, is because we're consistently and systematically blocked from resources and financing high net worth individuals. So I don't know about you, and if you do know, like a lot of us, and I'll just say there's, and everything's are changing. And you guys are young, and like I'm older, right? Like I'm almost 50, right? So like I'm coming from a different generational sort of pull where you guys are young and you don't think about things, and that's what I love about you guys. You don't think about race and gender and sexuality in the way that like we were brought up. Like you guys are way ahead of it. However, you still are going to have to deal. You know what I mean? You're still going to have to deal with bias from from the older people down a bit. I have faith in you guys that you're going to do better than we did. But all this is to say, we don't have access to like high net worth individuals. And as like I'm in the academy, I've won a shitload of awards. I'm jurying Sundance. I'm a big deal on paper, but I don't know those people. And by a fluke, a guy named Dan Kogan, who runs a group called Impact Partners. Now, Impact Partners does nonfiction movies. Like they did Icarus, they've won like always Academy Awards for these things. And Dan Kogan is like a ride or die white guy, lovely dude. So I'm just saying, I'm going into his race just because, like we have allies everywhere, baby. You know what I mean? And I was grateful that my eyes were open and he was a cool white dude that was like, hey, Av, would you ever run somebody else's fund instead of like having your own? And I was like, why? Yes, I would, Dan Kogan. I absolutely would run somebody else's fund. And I said, but the fund that I would want to run isn't going to be just for, I go, I have some changes because I'm also a sister and I believe in like, I'm going to tell you what I really think. You know what I mean? I'll be like, if you're going to ask my opinion, I'm going to let you know. So I told him.
I'll also note Effie is also a Sagittarius.
Exactly, right?
It's open mouth and it all just comes out.
Exactly. I was like, my granny said a closed mouth does not get fed. So I was like, well, I'll let you know. So I said, you know what? I go, look, here's what I think that's happening right now is that you know, there's a whole thing, and I'm an army brat, right? And so I grew up, my father, like, we grew up watching military movies and strategy, and my grandfather was a colonel, like, and he goes, like, and the first thing that people do when they're trying to divide up um, a collection or collaboration or cohesion, what do you call a group of people, the first thing that they do is they divide and conquer, right? And how do you divide and conquer is you start to silo them out, right? Women are over here, Black people are over here, Latinx is over here, LGBTQ is over here, people with disabilities are over here, like everybody's siloed off. And I was like, well, ain't that a bitch? I'm like, because everybody's chasing for that same dollar. I'm like, but if we all got together, and we were like, we could really kill this thing, because like there's no denying, because if we all link up, we could really run this game. You know what I mean? And that's where I went to Gamechanger, and I got very Jersey for a minute. And I haven't been to Jersey in a very long time. But that's where my roots are, where I was like, we can run up on this, right? So, like, so I was like, we can run up on this if we're all together, because then, you know what I mean? Because we're stronger together. And that's where, and I said, that's what I think that Gamechanger could be, because I don't think it should just be women, because sometimes when you say women, you always mean white women. And that's what Gamechanger was white women and maybe an Asian here or there, or Eurasian. And I was like, you forgot about a whole other groups of folks. You know what I mean? I go, so let's just have all of us be together, and we make sure that we all rise together. And the Gamechanger people were like, that is genius. Yes, Effie Brown. And you know, and I want to say that it took, like, they were immediate, like, Effie, you're the best thing since sliced bread. We had that meeting at the Spirit Awards in Los Angeles in February. They didn't hire me until October. And let me tell you why. And this is another thing where, like this, I'm just sort of going deep in just so you can, because it all goes into perception and how you get at this money. So, and what came back to me is that they said, you know what, Effie, I basically scared white people. And that's literally what they said to me. They're like, you scare? They're like, you are the Malcolm X and Spike Lee of producing. And but we think that and it took a minute, but we think that, you know, the people who are funding us like that, but they're also scared of it. So that was kind of good. I know Lisa's like this, what? I know it's a little too deep, but that's true.
Listen, I do tell stories that have been told to me by Jamie and other people about the just direct, in your face, you're not good enough because you're a woman or Black or gay, and I don't know if they believe me, but I'm sure they will now.
I'm saying like this. Here's the thing, and I don't know if you've ever had this. I much rather somebody tell me the straight truth rather than bullshit me and be like, oh my God, that's so great. Your hair's so pretty. I'll give you a call next week. And then like you wait and you're like, hey, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'd rather someone be like, yo, F, like, what is this? You know, and they told me, and I was like, and I said, you know what? Thank you for that. Thank you, because now I know how to go in. And they're like, but what confused them is that, like, I spent all my summer in Scandinavia, right? You know what I mean? I was in Finland and Denmark and Switzerland at a writing retreat. So they were like, so I confused them some sort of way. And they were like, yeah, like they were sort of afraid of you. And also Project Greenlight didn't do me any favors. That was a bit of a backlash. Where like the people were like, yeah, right on, Effie. But the powers that be with money and power, that did me in for a long while. But anyway, going back to, that's how I got the job at Gamechanger. And then what's interesting is that I actually, when coming into this company, I was like, yes, we're gonna have shitloads of money and everything's gonna be great. And then like, it was like, it's a new dawn and a new day. There wasn't as much money as I thought. And I had to go in and do a raise. But what's great about this is I was like, wow, me being a woman and a woman of color, I am now a majority owner of Gamechanger. The people that hired me are minority owners, like they're founders. Like I have 51%, they have 17, my investors have 30. Like, you know what I mean? Like they have like, and I was like, that's great, because I had to bring in my resources, and it was like my Netflix movie and things like that. So my talent and the projects that I had prior that I was working on, I was able to use that as collateral to become leveraged in this company that was financing movies. Why am I telling you all this? Is because it protected me to make sure that I would be able to finance and develop women, people of color, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities in front of and behind the scenes. It was my leverage to be like, I'm not going to do Black poverty porn or ethnic poverty porn. I'm not doing a white savior movie. I'm not doing a rom-com where the girl becomes whole when she gets the guy. I'm not doing, you know what I mean? I'm not doing any of those I'm not doing the bury your queers thing where like there's a gay person, but they're the best friend or they die at the end. Like we're not doing any of those. It's time for us to be the heroes of our own stories, or just to be in a different type of story of like, oh, it's a horror movie, but oh my God, they're all Asian. That's so like, oh, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, and let's not forget like whatever happened to like, like Native Americans, don't even talk about anymore, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know what I want to see? I don't want to see them with a teepee. I don't want to see them with a fucking feather in their hat. I want to see what they're doing now. I want to see them running their own life. Like, so and I'm like, you know what? Instead of me being, what? I'm like, wait, I'm writing checks. I can make it happen, right? You know what I mean? Like, so that's what we're doing right now at Gamechanger. And so the films that we have that are in the queue is one called Passing. It's with Nina Yang Bon Jovi. She did Dope and Sorry to Bother You and all of that good stuff. And so that's with Tessa Thompson and Alexander Skarsgård and Ruth Negga, about Black women passing during the time of like the Harlem Renaissance. So that was cute, got it. And then I did a movie called Stranger with a Camera by Orla George. We shot that in Ireland. And it's basically a daughter-father story dealing with the troubles of the IRA, since those circumstances are actually coming up again that happened in the past. So I'm trying to educate in sort of a thriller sort of moment, but it's basically a daughter who's like, my dad's lame, and then realizing, oh, my dad's not so lame. My dad's on the hideout. Wait, what? You know what I mean? And start figuring out like what her father really, who he really is. And then I have one called The Inspection that I'm going to be doing with a guy named Elegance Bratton, who it's sort of like Moonlight, Full Metal Jacket, and Officer and a Gentleman. A gay black homeless teen goes into the military, goes into the Marines during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And it's all about, what does it mean to join something? What does it mean to become a man? What does it mean for the military? And it's actually the director's story. So that's how he learned how to make movies, was join the Marines, but he's a, very out gay man from the very beginning. So my next film that I want to make like a good horror, crazy, like popcorn movie. Since I have my prestige, like I want to make sure that we have a portfolio, but everything that I'm doing is going to be done from that underrepresented lens. So that was a lot that I just threw at you guys, but those things might be talked about of coming up with like your plan, like actually writing down your plan of like what you want. Because if you don't know what you want, you might accept more shit than you need to, and need to keep a clarity of vision, and also really being self-aware of who you are and how you're perceived to other people. It might not be right, you know what I mean? Might not be accurate, but it's always, in my experience, it's good to know of like, okay, if this is how people are seeing me and I want to play this game, or I want to get from here, I can be right or I can be happy. That's a decision that you have to make. And for myself, I was like, that's great. Like when I was like, if people find me, like I'm never going to be an Uncle Tom or Shuck and Jive, but I definitely know that I'm funny. And I know that like when I'm talking to my investors, I know to smile and like make jokes and be a little be myself, but to turn that part of myself on a bit more. You know what I mean? Anyway, that was a long-winded. So do you guys have any questions, comments, concerns? Moving on, tell me everything.
Yeah, so if you guys want to ask a question, you can go ahead and unmute. We'll do questions and then we'll go on to another aspect. Anybody?
Question. That's okay.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Effie. First I wanted to say thank you for being here and stuff. I'm really enjoying the talk so far. And I know you from Project Greenlight, from Thrasher's class. and it's like I've never came to like a web chat so quickly, you know. Um, I wanted to say that I really admire your vision for Game Changer, and I'm on the website right now. The taglines that you have: no black poverty porn, no white savior stories, uh, no burying the queer. I think they're ingenious in the way they're worded and the vision that they kind of convey from what you're going for. And I'm getting long-winded. But anyway, I have the list of films up here from the What We've Done tab, and I'll take a look at them later. But my question, I have a series of questions. I don't know how long, like how many questions we're allowed to ask before moving on. But the first one,
Let's start with one, and then we'll go from there.
I have one, and you mentioned briefly that after Project Greenlight, you said that the powers that be cut you off. I don't understand why. You were great in the show, and I was wondering if you could expand on that.
Sure, sure. So here's what was so interesting about Project Greenlight. One was, and I'm sure we'll go into like a little bit more of it, but I'll just talk about the aftermath. I didn't realize that Matt Damon didn't like me at all until we went to like the screening at the end, and like Ben Affleck, who was beautiful, and I still have a special place in my heart for that man. I'm just gonna say, yes, but like it literally when I'm like, hey Matt, and I said hi, and then I saw his face go. You ever see those micro aggressions and expressions? And I caught it that fast. And that's when I knew, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Because all the while on Project Greenlight, I was never supposed to be the person. It was that guy named Mark Joubert, the good-looking, blue-eyed guy, right? He was, yeah. So that cat, you remember?
I don't even remember who that was.
Oh, really? Isn't that interesting? That's interesting. So
no.
he was supposed to be it. Like I was just because I was broke after doing Dear White People. Like I made $40,000 over 2 years doing Dear White People, and that was like $20,000 a year. And I almost lost my house, and I almost like got my car almost got repossessed. Like it was bad because I underpaid myself, and we'll talk about that too. Like make sure. Anyway, so I took Project Greenlight because out there, this HBO was like, we just need somebody make the movie, right? Just make the movie and we're going to pay you. And I always talk money because I think it's important. They're like, we'll pay you $175,000 to do this $3 million movie. And I was like, that's right, because my rate is $150, right? To do like whatever movie, like I don't get off of anything. I do that, except when I did Dear White People for no money and it almost killed me. Anyway, so when I saw cut to the end where Matt Damon didn't want to give me a hug or say hello, I knew that I was fucked because I had nothing to do with the docuseries. I never got paid for the docuseries. I still never gotten paid for any of the series. I only got paid to make the movie. So when you guys are watching this like in airplanes or like whatever, I don't see a fucking dime of that. I have nothing.
Pretty cool shit.
It's 100%. Like I got completely hustled. But this is also something that I keep I talk to people about. I always talk money because when you're making decisions, when you're poor, when you're like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my mortgage. My car, like I'm literally parking my car around different streets so that the man can't come take my fucking car. Right? You know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever had that moment where you're like, I'm literally like coming home and I'm like, and there's a notice on my door in my neighborhood. Right? And I'm like, I'm Effie Brown. I'm trying to be fancy, like pull that shit off, right? And they're like, but like nobody knows. That's what I'm saying. This whole thing is like, it's all smoke and fucking mirrors, right? So anyway, so when Project Greenlight came out, right? Remember, I never contractually had final cut of anything that I was in this documentary. I had nothing. And the only thing that I could do is to say, when they'd be like, Effie, in one episode, we need you to do like another little couple of sound bites. And I was like, fuck you. I'm not doing any more sound bites because I see that Matt Damon doesn't like me at all. And I don't know what you're about to come out with. And you keep wanting me to do these sound bites that are sort of, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm not doing like right now, all that.
The storyline, they were trying to craft your character in a particular direction. Yeah.
Exactly. And I didn't really, because I was like, because I've done 5 movies for HBO, right? And I thought they were my friends. There is no friends in this thing. Like your friends are the friends you have before you know what I mean? Are they're not like a studio or a network is not your friend. Anyway, so it became apparent that like I was in trouble. And then eventually I tried to see episodes and they would only show me an episode like a day or two before it aired, right? So, and then when I saw that one with Matt Damon where he was like Effie, and they cut a lot of that shit out, because he was like, because they thought like he got final approval, right? He got final approval.
Is we're not casting the show.
When he said Effie, this is what he said. That's what I remember. Where I was like, that's where I was like, wow, okay, you know what I mean, in front of all those folks, because he was like, Effie, we're not going to be diverse for diversity's sake. Like, we're not going to do that. Like, shut it down. Like, and I knew this, and his tone was like, fuck it, we're not going to like. Who cares about diversity for diversity's sake? You know, it's like, and you know, he's all like, you know, and you know, you do diversity in front of the camera, not behind. And I was like, I'm very Black and a woman sitting here. Do you know what I mean? Where I was like, okay. Anyway, and then, but what he didn't realize is that the Black Twitter and people came for him. You know what I mean? And I was literally like, my career is over. Like, and when that happened, like, I'm grateful that the people like were like, what? And came for him, you know, but that actually made him and his agents, Fox, remember they were doing First Man. He had to do an apology. He did a bullshit apology to everybody, never said my name, never directed at me. I've never spoken to him again since that day he gave me that shitty hug at the premiere that was taped of the movie, right? So like I have like that was in August and we aired like in September or whatever. Like so he's never spoken to me again. But sorry, long-winded. I'm long-winded. You gotta always speak on. So
This is great. Keep going.
so Lee Daniels actually called me because nobody was hiring me. I wasn't working. My friends were like, F, you're never going to work again because now you're labeled as difficult, confrontational, too blah, blah, blah. You were mean to the direct. I mean, people were awful. And then Lee Daniels called me up and said, girl, just like this, girl, you let those white boys have it. And he starts screaming on the phone. And I was like, I know, Lee, I didn't mean to. I just did. I was like literally bawling, right? Oh, they're detecting background noise from my computer, from my microphone. I'm sorry. Disable noise. I don't know what that means. So anyway, if you can't hear me, let me know. So he goes, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, Lee. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna work for a while. I guess I have enough money saved up. If I'm really frugal, I could last for a couple of months, and maybe people will forget. It'll be a new news cycle. And he's like, it's not gonna be a new news cycle because it's taken off. And he goes like, F, come work for me. And I love this man for that. He goes like, come work for me. Fox just gave me a bunch of money to do a pod. Come work for me, and I'll hire you. And so Lee Daniels had to step in. And that the head of Fox and Gail, wherever her name is, who's now someplace else, were like, do you really want to this? And he came back to me and told me what they said. He goes like, girl, like I had to like shut them down because they said that they didn't want me to hire you because you were confrontational and that you would be too difficult to handle. After seeing that, and he went to them and he said, and I believe him in this because he was irreverent, like Lee would cut you to pieces but also have your, but he said like they always say that to Black women, that like a women, because of Black women, because whenever you speak your mind, if you're not shucking and jiving, they are thinking that you're confrontational and aggressive and they don't want to work with you. So I'm doing it.
I must be a Black woman because I get that a lot.
I was saying it's women who get this. And it's like, and I don't want this conversation at all to be like martyrdom or a victimhood. Like I'm not interested in that. Like I keep going back to, I just know the environment that you're walking into and how you are perceived so that you can, like start playing chess. I always played checkers, of like a very honest, straightforward game. And I'm like, but these motherfuckers are thinking chess moves. Like they're like Russian, you know what I mean? Like I was like, I don't even know how to play chess. You know, I'm like, wait, you guys are playing, you're like 5 steps ahead. That's the thing that I wish I knew then, because I was like, okay. And now, you know, I'm grateful for it. Like I got very spiritual. I got really went to God because I was like, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. When you're really desperate, you really go for like, you know what I mean? You go to God. I'm just like, I did. I was like, okay. And literally, if it weren't for Project Greenlight, I wouldn't have had Gamechanger and I wouldn't be as well known as I am today. Like that's the thing that like I went through that hell, but now those 1%ers are like, oh, Effie's a girl woman who sassed Matt Damon. And I'm like, uh-huh, you did Truth to Power. And I'm like, and it killed me. But like, yeah, you know what I mean? And it also got me to the point where I was like, I'm gonna like literally like in 2018, if I didn't get that Center Reach grant, I was literally gonna go find like my Viking husband in like Finland or Denmark. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. I literally did. I was like, I'm out. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm gonna go live over there because they're happy. They're like the happiest place, right? That's what they said, the happiest place. And I'm like, I'm gonna go there. And then they strung me along with this CEO thing, and here I am. But I still am gonna go be like a lady Viking. I don't know if anybody watches that show. It's my favorite. I want to be like, no, okay. Lagatha? No one? No one? Okay, okay, got it. Okay, thank you, Gabrielle. Thank you, who understands my Viking fetish. No one? Okay. That was a long minute.
That was pretty intense. That was pretty intense.
I have to say, this is really great information, especially with the students who have sat through Project Greenlight with me in my class, because I pause it and I give the commentary of what I think's happening, and I ask the students. So you'll see one of the men saying something, and I'll pause it and I'll say, what are they really saying there?
Right.
And so we are doing this kind of, what is that, those people on the couch that make commentary on the movie? That's
yeah.
That's how we watch it. And I do highlight for them the social dynamics and the interpersonal dynamics that are going on there. Because in my experience, the most difficult part of this industry is the politics. And I don't mean Republican, Democrat.
No, it's just,
I mean the how you play the game. And I'm like, I'll put it all out there because I want to play, and like, here's information, and I open my mouth and cinder blocks fall out, and you know that I see a weird reactive face. I'm like, what's that about?
like this, like, do you not like me? Do you not find me as charming as I found me? Yeah, and it's real. It's really true. And like, and that's one of the things where people like, I like doing classes or like talks like this because maybe there's like 1 or 2 things that you guys might like. What I'm saying is super universal. It's just that I'm very specific as Black and a woman, but it's super universal of just being like, you know, it became very apparent to me of like, of just being like, wow, who, like how to play this game. You know, when I say game, but just being like how you want to maneuver in this, how you want to maneuver in this world. Because it's not show charity, it's show business. And it gets a little Machiavellian of like, end justifies the means. And I'm like, I want to be able to finance. I know that I will have made it in this industry when on my deathbed, I can look up and I can see that I had a hand in leveling the playing field of Hollywood. I can look up and I can see like my beautiful little filmmakers that are all different from all different walks of life. You know what I mean? Like that will just like, that's when I'm like, high five, God, I made it. Right? You know what I mean? Like, I'm ready to go. But, and I knew like in order for me to get there, I had to be like, okay, let's acknowledge like how people see you and start, you know, start maneuvering and using that sort of brashness as a brand and as currency instead as a, you know, a yoke around your neck, you know?
May I say 2 more things and then I'll mute my mic?
Go ahead.
In regards to Matt Damon and the hug and the apology video, the way, I mean, it sounds more like it's really his fault and he should be the one cut off, and his sass was more directly offensive. I think, than whatever you were doing. And also to what Professor Thrasher was saying, this is probably the best epilogue that I've ever had to any story. So I appreciate this.
No, that's
It's
great.
a great follow-up. So yes,
Oh,
now
that's great. Thank you. No, I totally
I,
meant to that.
I am
Thanks.
turning off my mic now. I'm done.
No worries. But it was also interesting, and I always tell people this too, why I'm grateful for Project Greenlight, because when I keep going back to self-aware, I didn't know how condescending I could actually sound. Like in my mind's eye, like hand to the Bible, I'm like, I was lovely. I didn't do, and then I'd watch it and I was like, wow, that was a bitch move. You know what I mean? You have those moments where you're like, ooh, you know what I mean? Because like at no point do I think that like I was innocent, you know what I mean? Like I definitely got the brunt of terrible things, but like I was a human being.
I gotta stop you there.
Mhm.
I have watched that show 10 times now because every semester I have never felt that way. And what I have felt is I've been in that position inside the studio, on film sets. I know what's going on there. And I know you're just calling out to try to say,
100%. Yeah. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. But then there's a moment of being like, but here's the thing, what I love, like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I wish like I would have known this when I was younger, of being like, you know, and this is really hurtful to say, nobody gives a shit if you are truly on time or on budget or a really, really hard worker. They would much prefer it if you were a nice person and you got along with people and they liked how they felt when they were with you. That's, I mean, like, I don't, this is like, that's a little controversial to say. I've never gone over budget. I've never gone over schedule. I've always been hardcore. I was always raised with like, you got to be twice as good, twice as smart, twice as this, blah, 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 to be like, And then I would see my counterparts who were not as smart and not as capable, but being able to move forward. And granted, it's bias and all of that sort of shit. But at the end of the day, I was like, wow, you know, if nobody cared that I killed myself to bring in Dear White People for 1.2 million. Nobody cared. Nobody gave a shit. The director didn't care. The financier didn't care. What they would like, if I were nicer, or if I were, you know what I mean, made them feel good all the time, like maybe they wouldn't have cut me out of that Netflix deal.
but they never would have had that expectation of you if you were a man. They expect women to be there to fluff them and to make them feel good, to be their mom.
100%.
The additional layer of burden and responsibility that's put on us in the workplace.
100%. And that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the thing. But here's the thing. And that's why I say I don't want this to be like a, you know, on a cross, you know what I mean? Sort of conversation. Like everybody has their thing. You know what I mean? Like everybody. Like I'm working with you know, here's something, and this is something to talk about. You know, I know how you guys ever feel, but like I'm working with I have a lot of white straight male friends who are like, my last film I did was with a guy named Ben Berkowitz. Like, you know, one of the films called Polish Bar, and he was like, look, like nobody's looking for me right now at all. Like I'm a straight white guy who's Jewish in Hollywood. Like they're not looking for me. They're not looking for me. Like no one's like, you know, like I am out of vogue right now. And I'm like, I would love to, and I'm like, probably. Right, you know what I mean? Like you've had a great run, baby. You had a great run for decades and decades. But still, if I were a come up of like a young white dude, you know what I mean? I'd be like, you know, huh. Like I definitely have, and that's why, you know, and I'm doing movie. I want to do a movie about it too. Like that's the next thing that I want to do, where I want to do an accurate movie about like, what is it like right now to be a young white guy coming up? Like you're not like a Trumper. You're a regular, like, you know, good person. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do? Like, what does that look like? I think that's pretty fascinating. And I think it'll be a huge hit because that's the demographic that no one's talking to right now.
Don't you think that the kind of bread and butter jobs are still going to be just quietly passed on there? Like indie films, sure, people are really looking at the kind of.
Well, here's the thing, like, oh, for sure. I mean, like when I'm saying young, people on the come up, like right now, like with coronavirus, and I don't want to be doom and gloom with coronavirus, I'm grateful that I'm doing Gamechanger, because if you think for a minute that everyone's going to be focused on diversity and inclusivity once this industry comes back, you're out of your mind. Because everybody who is like, you know what I mean, that has been around for a long time, have not been eating, and they're like, fuck you. They're going to be like the 400-pound gorilla making their way. And those are going to be like mostly like the dominant culture, like and I'm just going to say white, because a lot of times white women, it's the same. Do you know what I mean? As white men.
All the guys that haven't yet had a big Me Too story come out and haven't died from Corona are going to be shoving everybody out of the way.
100%. And also white women, don't sleep on them. You know what I mean? Because like they feel like it's a very interesting fulcrum that we're at with that. Where like sometimes they're with us, but sometimes they're not necessarily of that. Like I think of like, and I'm not going to name drop, but like I know a couple of like women that that came up in that old studio system. Do you know what I mean? Where there could only be one. You know what I mean? And like they're not looking to like make sure that things are equal. They're just not, because also at the end of the day, it's human nature, right? You know what I mean? They might have lost jobs, you know, for coronavirus. They might have like, it's always easy to be diplomatic and lovely when you've got a full bank account. When you're struggling and hurting, forget about it. No one's gonna be like, I want the underrepresented voices to come in. They're gonna be like, mm-mm. They're gonna be like, where's my check? That's what they're gonna say.
Does anybody else have another question before we go on?
I have a question. I don't know if you guys can see me. Hi.
Thing like sometimes I think I have to say Zoom is a little better. The Cisco thing. Just let me know. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question.
There you are. How do you say your
Yeah.
name?
Alua Shawn.
Alua Shawn.
Alua Shawn, yeah.
Okay. And do you have a nickname? Because I'm gonna murder that.
Shawn. Shawn is fine.
Shawn. Okay, you're like this, just Shawn, girl. Shawn. I'm like Alua, she's like just Shawn. Okay,
Don't worry about it. Yeah, I was curious. This is all really fascinating. And so I'm just curious as to how Gamechanger finds its stories, or how people can get connected with you to share their stories with Gamechanger.
So this is a thing, like for you guys, because I know Lisa. I like how was it Matthew Vargy called her Thrasher. I love that. I'm gonna go Thrasher. That was cool. Matthew was like, well, Thrasher. I was like, I like that. So because I know Thrasher, I would let her be sort of, sorry, honey. I would let her be the sort of funnel for me. But typically, I can't accept anything that doesn't have representation or lawyer or something like that, because this is a business and people sue all the time, and there's only so many fresh ideas out there. You know, but typically, and I'm actually getting ready to hire, I had to let go of my content officer. I'm hiring a new person now, and that's their job, is to get the submissions. Then we distribute them to our interns. They do coverage, and then I read the ones that sound interesting, and then we make them. But usually it comes from an agent, a manager, or a lawyer, or it has to come through somebody that I really know. Like if you gave Lisa a script, Thrasher a script, and Lisa was like, this is good, F, I think you should take a look at it. And then I read it, and then you're like, sue me the next day. Like if I have a script that's sort of similar to it or whatever, you know what I mean? I'd come for you. I'd be like, I'm like, Lisa, why you have me out there on Front Street with Sean? You know what I mean? I'd be like,
fair enough.
but that's it. But a lot of times I look for stuff that like has gone into like script competitions or things, or like festivals, you know, things like that it's very helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anytime.
One thing I tell the students is to prepare themselves when they're making their senior short films. The directors, they should have either a feature script or an idea or treatment or something like that. So if the film performs well and goes to one of the big festivals, people will care about short films. I mean, my queer production company, Power Up, we brought the short film Debs to Sundance, and Angela Robinson's career exploded from there. And that was what they wanted to know. What do you have? Do you have a feature version of Debs? And so that's something that the students can definitely prepare for.
100%.
Yeah.
And also what's really great too, now that this is a little different, we're an IP, an intellectual property game. So if you guys have a book or something that nobody has seen or read or whatever, like that's also really like, hey, I have this book that I'd like to do, because I'm also looking as Gamechanger, I'm doing television. So I'm also looking to get like to buy IP for a filmmaker so that we can develop it together from the bottom up, you know? So that, so you don't have to always have like, I have every script, but you could be like, I like this story, I want to say this, I want to do this, and let's make it happen together. And I have to say, Abigail, I love the fact that you have this flower like framing your face. I was like this. I just have to say, it's very like weirdly Billie Holiday in a way, but anyway, I just want to say that. Okay.
I have to point out Abigail, who we call Paige.
Oh, Paige. Okay.
I have to point out Paige is one of my top producing students and kills it on everything. So I have to throw some props out for Paige.
Oh, well, excellent. Okay, Abigail. Paige. Abigail's one of my favorite names. That's also why I remembered.
Mine too.
I love that name. But Paige is great. Paige is great. Oh, look at your cute photo, Lisa, when like you don't have the video. Okay.
I have a photo.
You do have a photo. I know it's a very V-necked photo and you're looking awesome. Okay, girl.
Okay, so now we understand a little bit more about the politics of the industry, which are treacherous, to say the least. We understand that Gamechanger is like a superhero there, cutting through the old guard and trying to change the world, which we're extremely excited about. So how does Effie, the producer, go about before Gamechanger? What would you have done to finance a film? Are you gonna
Yeah, so this is
on
the
the
thing.
street? What?
If I could, if I were 20 years younger and I had a flat stomach, yes, I would totally do that. But here's the thing, what's so interesting, I always had to pay attention to the trends, right? What's happening in the industry. And so, and I would always, like back in the day when I was first starting ish, I knew that because I knew that I didn't have high net worth I didn't have resources on high net worth individuals or access to them. My sweat equity and my skill was my leverage, what I was able to pay forward. So it was really important for me, like if I want is to get an alignment with like an HBO. I did a couple movies for them, you know? And so I would go to where I'd call it where the love is. You know what I mean? Like who likes me or who knows that like I don't have to start from scratch all the time and being like, oh, Effie Brown, she's too indie, she's too this. Because everybody's always trying to tell you no, you know? When I was like, so it was at the beginning, mid-career, I was at a point where I would be getting sent things that it had to move me emotionally. Like there's a movie that I have now that I want that I'm gonna have to wait till September to get. And it scares me. It could like be a cultural shift type of a movie and it's fucked up. You know what I mean? And I can't stop thinking about it. And that's when I read those scripts, that's when I'm like, that's when I know that this is for me. Like where I'm nervous about like, oh, your woman card or your black card could be taken away or your PC card. And I'll be like, fuck it, I love it, I'm doing it. You know what I mean? Don't care. Art, you know, art above all, you know? But I would always go to like, I know for this movie, even though I have the money, I need to build alliances, right? So whenever, like even coming in like the mid part of my career, I'd be like, well, who can I align with that would understand this particular movie, you know? And that was, you know, and that was something. Now it's totally different. Like that's what I'm saying. It's really odd to talk about what I would have done back in the day doesn't mean anything anymore because that was before Netflix. That was before like, you know, iTunes. You know what I mean? Like iTunes, I came over like we had like, oh, what's that little thing called the little shuffle thing with the music? But 100 songs. You know what I mean? Like that's where it come from. Okay. Nowadays, here's the truth of the matter. It's all about talent. When I say talent, it's like you hear about all of these as celebrity, and it's really depressing because celebrity is the new currency, right? So like every actor has like John Boyega. Like really, is he that good of an actor? No. Does he have a deal at Netflix to do African content? Yeah. Will he get it done? And what makes him so, oh, people recognize him and will watch it. Okay. Brad Pitt did, Timothy Chalamet. I liked him a little bit though, right? But he's also in there. Like everybody, like every actor is now all of a sudden like a filmmaker. And like that's what people tend to care about. I just spoke to Quibi, the people at Quibi yesterday, and they're like, and they were lovely, but they were very honest. Like they're star fuckers. They're like, look, we need like a star. We don't care how like Effie, you're a brilliant producer. We will totally need to bring our people to you to produce stuff for us. But we need like, we're not doing shit for the art. Right? You know what I mean? They're like, it's Kevin Hart. It's this like we need like who is in this? And I'm like, and that's something that now, like if you have a product or a book or something, it would be like, it's that piece of talent that you walk in the door with. And if it's not that, a lot of it is knowing how to hustle up and do something for cheap. You know what I mean? Like if you have like, look, I know I can drudge up like $500,000 from like my mom and my dad and my family members. Like if you can do that, like that's a beautiful bet. Like you should take that bet and do it. Like bet on yourself, because that can be your calling card to get you up and out of like 100,000 or 200, like whatever that amount of money is, like a micro budget film. But nowadays, especially now, you got to remember, like theaters are dead. Sorry, theaters are dying. Ain't nobody going back to a theater after this. I don't know. Are you?
What are they gonna do? We just lost or recently lost the DVD market for the most part, except for massive studio films. That was the bread and butter for distribution. What are we gonna do if because
we're doing streamers.
They're not paying out that much to
And
smaller.
let's talk about that lie. So this is where people are like they're not paying out that much. And I'm like, I've made, I don't know, like out of the 50 something credits that I've done, I've never gotten $1 back on any sort of back end on Real Women Have Curves, Dear White People, like, but any of those movies that like on books looks like it's made money, I've never gotten a dime back. And that is one, because I'm sure it's made money, but I have to go in and pay $10,000 to audit their books. And then that takes time. And then if they don't find anything, because it's always creative accounting, it's screwed. So that's why you always have to pay yourself out of the budget, period. You have to pay yourself out of the budget, period. What I like about streamers is that they'll be like, hey, Ab, we're gonna like, this is gonna be life-changing for me. We're making a $20 million movie called Bug Girl. And we just hired Debbie Allen to be the director. It's a live action YA musical superhero, girl superhero movie. Great. And so they're like, Effie, it's $20 million. We're only gonna pay you 5% off of the net, right? That's a net, right? This is $15 million. We're only gonna pay you 5%. And I was like, are you paying me 5% of $15 million? Right, you know what I mean? I'm like, thank you, I'll do whatever you want. Right, that's as a fee. Right, you know what I mean? I'm like, you can, I'll work like a dog for you. You know what I'm saying? I was like, thank you. And then, like, let's not get that twisted. And then I was like, thank you. And then they're like, and then we're going to give you another 5% Effie as a buyout at the end. So for a movie that I would have done normally for like $175,000 low budget movie, like, are you fucking kidding me that I can walk away with like $1.5 million? I don't think I'll ever see that money. And if I do, I'm rich. Okay, sorry. And that's not even rich. I mean, like, that's so sad. Like, that's when you're, I know.
Netflix?
It's at Netflix. And of course, that's all the producers have to share that. And right now, I'm the only producer, but somebody else is going to come and like cut open that money. Like, it just sounds good for right now that I'm going to be rich later on, but I'm not. But like
Netflix would be, you would be producing and then handing it over to them, but they
own everything. Like, who cares? Like, here's the thing. Like,
Well,
If
but the
you're
buyouts.
the buyout's 5%. Like, fuck you, great. Like, and then for me, it's like, you're gonna pay me off the net, and like, and I know technically you're a $25 million. So if it's $20 million movie that I did, like, and I'm used to those from like the Disney thing, you pay me 5% of $20 million, I will do whatever you want. And my buyout, that's just the fee. Boop. And then the buyout's gonna be another 5%. I have yet to make a dollar off of something that Real Women Have Curves is in the National Registry. I have made zero. I got paid $75,000 to make that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. I'm thinking more about like the Power Up films. We paid for them personally, and so we own them entirely. So we were trying to, shuffle our cards out and get our money back. So on Itty Bitty Titty Committee, I will say we did make a profit. So money did.
Can you tell me how much money you made? Can you talk in that sort of numbers, or are you still shy? I just told you how much I was thinking.
Oh, how much I got paid?
No. I mean, for like when you're talking about like this is the stuff that I think that really matters, because everyone gets weird. And I don't know, this is a conversation, like people get weird when talking about money, but it's like that's just how they keep us broke. You know what I mean?
Well,
Because it's how they keep us poor, being like how much money, like if you paid, like I don't know how much Itty Bitty Titty Committee made, like you made that for X. How much of profit have you seen from that? Because that's what we're doing for Game Changer too. Do you know what I mean?
We made it all in, delivered to distributors, $200,000. But our company was structured as a 501c3 nonprofit. So I probably, if I was having to pay for that film out of pocket just with cash, probably would have been about 1.5. But I could get it out the door for 200,000. I didn't take a salary. Stacy didn't take a salary. Andrea, Jamie, none of us took a salary. The writers didn't take salaries. We were doing it for just to get a feature out there for queer women and represent the queer community. And we were also training and educating people on a training set. So our model was a little bit different. And we had money personally that we could just fund it. And we didn't bother with going out and getting.
Which is nice, but how much did you make off of that? So you made a $200,000 investment. And that was in the 90s. Like when was it, or aughts? When did you make that movie?
It premiered in 2007 at Berlin.
Okay. And then from 2007 to now, how much has that movie made? Which is, that's a micro budget movie. Yeah. But yeah.
So on the festival circuit with screening fees and stuff, I got about 125,000. And then with distribution, I don't remember my exact numbers, but I think I got about 200,000 in for distribution.
So now you made a 125,000 profit.
Basically.
Got it. So, and for
not huge.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and that's where, like, that's what's so important when you start going into these numbers things of being that, like, you know what, like, and let's talk about to get that 125,000, you have to pay your company taxes on it. You have to do K1s to all the investors. You have to work for that. And after a while, like, and after like, I don't know, 8-10 years or whatever it's going to be, 2007, 2017, like, you know what I mean? To be like, I'd much rather be like, fucking buy me out within the 6 months of me turning it into you for 5%. I'm out, because
absolutely
fucking money.
Nobody was wanting to buy out.
I know. Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, but a big chunk of that was logo, was programming then, more queer content. Now it's just kind of TV stuff, and DVD was a big chunk of that.
Right. It's a new day. That's what I'm saying. If your original question was, what would you do now if you were financing movies? And and for me, I'm just dumbing it down for myself. It's like, it's about building those alliances and who likes you and who do you want to get in with? And that's where I was like, right now, like I have money, but I'm like, I need to make friends with Quibi. I need Netflix to come in and be like, Effie, Game Changer. You're going to own that underrepresented market. Yep. Buy me. Let me be your go-to pipeline for project. You know what I mean? Like an Apple. Like those are the three places where I'm like, I need you to love me, because I'm going to be able to give you product and I'll be able to pay back my investors with that 5% premium. And also, you know, I'm going to take a salary out of the company. So if I'm taking my salary out of the company, plus I'm going to get like 5%, you know what I mean? If I'm going to get 750, you know what I mean? As a producing fee, I'm like, great, I'm going to personally take a taste of that and send it back into the company. You know what I mean? Like, and then with that money into the company, I'm then like, dope, I'm now going to be able to do 2 more movies, right? Develop 2 more movies and get those things financed, because I'm able to, like I said at the beginning, it's all going to come back. I'm able to build that leverage, right? I'm able to take that and be like, take it, be able to leverage it, and to be able to bring somebody else for it, rather than being so hand to mouth.
Yes, indeed. Have you met with Suzanne, who runs the YouTube studio?
No, and you know what? I don't like YouTube. I don't know how you think
This stuff. We could do this offline, but I've got an idea.
Love in my heart, hook me up. Like literally, I'm slapping palms with everybody. Like I want that. I need to be like I have too good of a reputation, and now that I can ko-fi, and I'm not thirsty. You know what I mean? Like there's something to be said of like, oh, I can pay my mortgage for the rest of the year. Like I didn't have to, like I'm getting ready to hire somebody instead of laying off people. I'm looking at who I'm going to like interns, right? You know, like my groovy interns that I have now, I'm like, who am I going to give jobs to on this movie? Do you know what I mean? I'm just so happy to be able to do the work. And that's really makes me almost cry, because that's slightly pathetic. And that just sort of shows the lack and scarcity that I've come from, that I'm finally just able to like, oh, I get to do the work now with resources.
Right.
And that's a goddamn shame, right? You know what I mean? To be like, you happy to go to work, girl? You happy to go to work? And I'm like, yeah.
Does anybody have any questions at this moment?
I do have a question.
Hey, how do you say your name? Is it Allah? What do you say it?
Yes, my name is Ala.
I like it. Yeah, right on.
Thank you for doing this. I was so excited when I found the name Effie doing it. So I do have a question. In your level of experience and knowledge, what would you want to see from a freshman of a filmmaking career like what would you want to see from them in order to hire them, especially if they come from a different background and cultural stuff like that?
Great. So first for me, I want the different cultural and I don't want the different background. Like I'm a very big believer in the specificity of a voice leads to the universality of like the theme and the storytelling. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it just makes sense to me. And I will always go back to like, if you look at like the specificity of like Black Panther, which is all Black, all Africa, you know what I mean? Like an amalgamation, but like everybody was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Everybody loved it. But it was really about family and finding yourself, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, and I'm a part of this group. I'm a part of Film Independent that you all should be a part of, and I'm a part of this thing called Global Media Makers, where I'm actively, you know, like we went to Egypt. We got back from Morocco, and we were supposed to go to Turkey. Like, we're going to like find filmmakers, right? You know what I mean? Like, what are you guys doing? Because here's the other thing too, like the world is so much bigger than the US, and it's time for us to start realizing that. And like I said, and make allies and make friends. So that's where I was like, for real talk, I was like, I want to go do like a noir, like in Scandinavia. I'm going to like go into Africa. Like I'm talking to people in South Africa. Have I ever been to Africa? Just Morocco and Egypt. Do you know what I mean? Just like North Africa. I ain't never been sub-Saharan. I have no idea where anything is. But anyway, I'm like, I want to go there because there's a lot of countries that make up the continent of Africa, and I want to be able to give them content. You know what I mean? But like, because the folks here in the U.S. don't know how to do that yet, but they are getting smart about it, and that's why they're going to the John Boyegas. That's why there's a lot of like Arab filmmakers now, you know what I mean? That like people are like sort of coming at and being like, because it's great, it's beautiful storytelling, and we're bored of our own American bullshit. I'm America, hoorah, for sure. You know what I mean? Like I'm all about it, but we're bored. We're bored. We want to go and see like, what are you guys doing? Like, how do you guys function? And then like, and that to me. So for me, with someone coming up, do not try to Americanize or so whenever I'm saying be self-aware of like this is how they see me, but I'm like, you know what I mean? You're able to lean into that and show that like, you know what I mean? Like I'm variety, like I'm something new and fabulous, but like I can still relate. You know what I mean? Like, and people like that. Anyway, that's what I thought was long-winded, but that's my answer.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I'm here for you.
Thank you.
I had a question. Oh, Paige, you can go first.
So when you're working with budgeting and when you're making films, I know that each film brings its own sort of uniqueness and sort of different sort of tasks that you have to do. And so like when you're creating, your budget plan and going forward, if you can share, what is your strategy like going forward?
So what is my strategy with going forward when budgeting a project? Great. So that's how I came up. I came up as a line producer. And I think that a lot of, I was really ashamed of that for a long time because people treated us badly. Do you know what like, how can I say it? Like, we're just like, you're a worker bee, you're a peasant, you know what I mean? But I'm like, but I'm the one that's making sure all this shit happens for you. You know what I mean? So that's been my own personal thing. But what I'm really good at is I'm good at breaking apart something. And I think when I'm looking at a budget, and now it's a practice that I really urge anybody who is a producer to figure out, is to really start knowing how to budget and schedule. Because once you exercise that machine and that muscle, no one's going to be able to pull a fast one over you. No one's going to be able to tell you like, oh, we don't have money for that, or we don't have the money. You can be like, yes, we do, because I know that we didn't do this. This crane is supposed to go here, and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? You can shut people down. And it's also when you don't know where the money is, people can take advantage of you. Mm-hmm. Period. So that's why, like, I really tell people to be hyper focused on where the money is and how the money is being spent, but also on scheduling, to know, like, when you physically are breaking down that script and knowing and it's boring to some people, but to be like, what is what day and where's going where? Are we going outside to inside? Because shit happens on a set and they're like, hey, that whole location just burnt to the ground. What do we do? Your job as a producer is to be like, well, we have the ice cream parlor, we have the ice skating rink, and we have that. You can move this thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna boop, boop, boop. But for, my main things for when I'm budgeting, I always go below the line first, and I really do think it's important. And I always tell people, like, union is the way to go. And it's really expensive. And and I hated paying like damn near, like 200 or whatever $1,000 just to these unions for fringes and all of that shit. But it protects you. And it also, if you can lay in your budget with everybody's rates, like for a 12-hour day and a 14-hour day, I lay in the labor, I automatically know, like, this is this nut. If I'm doing a 20-day shoot, this is what it's going to look like financially. You know what I mean? What it's going to look like, and I'll be able to move. But it's always so below the line. And the thing that nobody, like, my first test is, people got to know where they're going to shit and where they're going to eat. And that's really graphic, but those are the things that you have to figure out. So location wise, where are they going to the bathroom, and where are they eating, and what are they eating? Like, and that's the next step for me, because if you've ever been on a show where they've had shitty food, or you had to go down the street up this to go pee, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Nobody's coming back, right? You know what I mean? Nobody's coming back for that. And that's the thing. And those are also the things that can really shut down a production. Everyone's like, oh, it's production design, or oh, it's costumes. It's my 5 cameras to shoot it. And to be like, no, it's not, because actors can act. And if the script is good enough, there's magic that's going to happen between the two characters, no matter how you have to shoot it for necessity. You know what I mean? You should be so engaged that you're not looking at, like, the color of her shirt matches the wall and matches the drapes. No one's gonna, like, those things are all gravy. These are the things. How much are you paying people, and make sure that they're of quality? Because getting someone who's young and hungry because they're young and hungry can tank your movie as well if they don't know what they're doing. And you got to know like how are we feeding people? What's breakfast? If I'm having people have a call time at 5 a.m., better. You know that your craft service and your breakfast people have to be there at 3, right? Right, you know what I mean? Like, and that's what I'm saying. And then, but people don't realize, like, your craft service person or your caterer's not working a 12-hour day. They're an 18-hour day, no matter what. You better put that number in. Same thing with Teamsters. That's the next thing that I go to is that like anything with wheels, and just get over yourself because a Teamster will make more money than a producer most times on an independent film, period. And if you really wanted to be smart, I would really be like, if I were really like possibly doing things over again, I wonder what it would be like to be a Teamster producer. Because I wouldn't, because those cats know everything and everyone, and they can make or break your production, 100%.
I have a question.
Excellent information. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Akisa?
Hi, yes. Thanks for sharing this class on the Brown Girls Doc Mafia. That's how I found out about it. So I have a question. I'm a documentarian and producer. What do you recommend for someone who is doing their first feature for writing, directing, and producing? I want to make sure I crew it properly because that's really important, as you just said. And I just want to make sure I'm in alignment with the right crew. And then also, if you want to go to East Africa, I'll happily be your guide. I lived there for 8 years as a foreign correspondent. I was in Nairobi for 8 years as a foreign correspondent. So holler, I can show you Nairobi.
Well, see, I love it. Closed mouth doesn't get fed. Thank you. I love
Exactly.
it. So my advice to you is this, and I know it always sounds really hardcore, but like you can't be like, try to share. Like being a producer, director, and writer and all of that stuff, you know what I mean? Like have somebody help you. Get another producer, maybe take a secondary position as producer. Like you got to share the wealth otherwise. But I know that documentaries are very different because they're so time consuming and long, and maybe it's a personal doc, like I don't know. But my thing is that like you got to get help. It's always too much for one person to do all of that. You can be the loveliest of people, but you get burnt out and then you become a nightmare for yourself and for other people. It just happens. Like that's just human nature because you're going to be stressed out. You know what I mean? So, and it's better to have a partner. It's just better. Like, because I always think about, I don't have kids, but I think about like, I know that in my heart of hearts, I could never be a single mother like that. And like, I think a film is like a child. Like, I know that like, I need somebody else to be like, this little bastard, take it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Oh, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, and that's the only way for it to work, you know, for me to be able to be like, ooh. And that's it. Like that's my advice. Get a collaborator or a partner. And granted, they're going to bring a whole other because you know you're co-parenting, really. You know what I mean? And that's tough to be like, well, this is my baby, but like it's a hard road to go.
So how do you preserve your vision then if you are bringing in multiple collaborators? Like I'm all for collaboration, it's really key, but how do you protect your vision then?
One, you have to have the vision. And like when I talked about earlier, where I was like, I would talk, like I needed to time to make a plan. I needed to write down my plan, like not talk about it. I needed to write it down and to visually show somebody because I'm asking them for money, right? You know what I mean? That's really important because you can point to something and say, this is the vision, not this, not that, this. Are you in with this? And it's right here, and you signed off on this. So this thing that you can take with you on the road with you. And so you could always point back to it of like, this is what it is, right? And, you know, and sometimes you can deviate and be like, okay, instead of it being red, it's going to be green. And then you swap that the green pages in, and now you're going along. You have to keep people in, but there always has to be a boss, a creative thread. And that's fine. No one's saying that like everyone wants to share power, you know what I mean? 50, 50, 50 power. But it is someone to be said of a partner. There could be a 60-40. There could be like, hey, look, I'm going to handle creative. I need you to handle the business. I'm going to, you know what I mean? Or vice versa. You have to really be clear about what your lanes are. And they're always, it's like friendships and people. Like some people are going to overstep. Some people are going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to forget things. There's a thing that for me where it's like, you know, and it's going to go back into like, you know, sandbox politics, but it's kindness.
Yeah.
You know, someone being like kind and not like for me, you know, people make mistakes and I'm always very clear, like, ooh, I fucked that up. Like, ooh, you know what I mean? And I'm like, yep, sure did. And if somebody beats me up after I've already owned something, that's not kind. And like, that's not a partner. You're an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not going to want to work with you again. And the same thing for me. Like, my mother does that. Like, she'll like, you know, I'm like, after I've said, I'm like, I already said I was sorry. You know what I mean? Like, nobody likes that. You need that person to be like, all right, high five. Or even we get that great partner that's like, sees you mess up, doesn't have to talk about it, and picks it up and fixes it. That's the person where you're like, I love you, you know? Yeah. And that's what we're looking for. Like, I'm looking for that, you know, I'm looking for, like, I love working with different directors and things, but like, I'm looking for the one. I'm looking for like my Ron Howard, like Brian Grazer, Ron Howard. Like, I'm looking for the person that I could be like, let's just build. You know, I'm looking for like my right-hand person in my company because I mess up. Like, I hired a chief content officer and had to fire her because I was like, "Ooh, not what we talked about." You know what I mean? We said this, and what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, that's all. That's just what it looks like.
Not to go into the dirty question, but why didn't it work out with the chief content officer?
Here's the truth, and it's not politically correct, but it is my truth. Gamechanger is a startup. You know, Gamechanger is sort of like, I don't intrude on people's weekends unless it's something terrible, but I do believe that you need to work like as hard as I work and like be, you know, and when as an employee, I need you to be solving problems rather than bringing problems to me to solve, right? You know what I mean? I'm not like, I used to be a micromanager, but now I've learned the thing of like, you got this handled? Great. And when you don't have it handled, you need to come to me and say you don't have it handled so I can help you. And what happened is that the person that I chose was coming from a nonprofit. So their hustle is not as hardcore as like the independent startup hustle. It's just not. And the fact that she had 2 small kids. It was physically impossible for her to work a full day. You know what I mean? And I used to like, and I liked the idea, and this is where I messed up. Because I was like, when I did the Jane Campion film, I had a daycare in the production office, right? And I knew that was like 15 years ago. And I knew because I had too many women, this sounds sexist, and it probably is. We had too many women that had kids. And I knew that like, whenever somebody has a kid, they're going to be like, gone, they're at the gym, and they're always, and I'm like, forget it. I'm gonna have all those little children there so that the mamas will be there. And like everybody, like they can just walk in that room and check on the kid. And I hired a nanny, Danny the nanny. And he would take them out in the day, you know what I mean? Like that's what I did. And I liked that idea. And I thought when I was running Gamechanger, I wanted the idea that I wanted to be family friendly and mother friendly and all of that. But at the beginning, it is not. It is not. Like I couldn't let her go at 4 o'clock to go pick up her kids from school. Like, are you high? You know what I mean? And then you'd be working from home. I'm like fuck you, like get out of here. And then like, you know what I mean? It just didn't work. And the fact that what was unfortunate was I projected myself onto her, being that like I like to make systems and don't need to be told what to do. And I like to be the boss of things and run shit. She did not. She was someone that needed to be told what to do and then would go do it and then would come back. And I'm like, yo, like, you're running your own department, sister. You know what I mean? Like, you know. And that was the thing, but that my job, but my truth was, it's like, and also I took her from the nonprofit. I pilfered her. So I couldn't check her out at her job. Otherwise it would have tipped off that I was stealing her. And when I took her, everybody from that nonprofit was like, you gonna see, she's not, you know what I mean? They all were like, good luck. And I was like, did I just take someone off your hands? And they're like, yep. I was like, oh, yeah. But I have to say, it wasn't all her.
One of the things that I say on the first day of class in every one of my classes is I've got my little triangle theory. And there's a little egg sitting on top of the triangle, and that's the students from birth up until they graduate. Everybody below them is pushing them up and holding them up and growing them. Their parents, their family, their teachers, their counselors, their coaches. But the minute you get into the workplace, you're down on the bottom, and you are the one that has to push up and support the work of those above and support those that are at the top, because they're out there driving the ship. They don't have time to pedal the bus in the back.
Yeah, and that's so true. Like, I had this moment where I literally went to her and I said, and that even I'm in therapy, and my therapist was like, you got to fire her. You know what I mean? Over the weeks, he's like, you got to let her go. Because she was like, when I went to her and I was like, look, I need support. When I'm telling my employee, I need support. I need you to help me. I'm spending hours having you cry on the couch and tell you everything is going to be okay. Like I'm supporting you right now. Like, I need you. Like, I'm stressed out. Like, I'm raising money. I'm making an intern schedule because you don't know how to do it. Yeah, it was real.
Yeah. Those are excellent lessons for the students. I hope you guys take note on all of that. How to work is important.
So important.
Yes, I do have a question. Yes, I am taking notes. First of all,
Hey.
hello, hi. Thank you for being here and answering our questions. I'm a senior film student with a concentration in directing, but I'm also interested in producing. But there's a thing that a lot of people think about producers, that they are businessmen or they just deal with the financial issues in the film. But I believe that producers also may have a creative approach or artistic approach in the film. So, because like we won't hire any businessman or a business major, we hire a person who has a film background with a producing degree or a knowledge of producing. So, what do you think? I don't know. Is it true that producers only deal with money and nothing creative, or?
No, you're wrong. So no, you're right. No, you got wrong. I mean, that's a great question.
Saying he is not taking my producing class. That's not what I'm teaching.
No. I mean, like, I've heard this question before, Mom, but like, I totally have gotten, like, producers are filmmakers, but you are correct. Remember when I talked about, like, I came up as a line producer and I was like ashamed for a long time because people just thought I was a nuts and bolts, like, you're a bean counter. You know what I mean? And I was like, no, I have things to say. You know what I mean? And it was really, I had to do a lot of work of like, producers are filmmakers. Producers are filmmakers. We actually execute and collaborate with the vision with the director, period. We definitely, while we let most times, and I'll say the producer handles the logistics and the running of the machine and supporting that vision, creative vision, we are partners with the director, period. Right? Like, that's part of it. Like, I'm not going, like, this always drives me crazy. And I'm in the academy in the producers branch, where it's like everybody thinks that they can do our job, right? Like, we give notes on the script. We tell them like, hey, you should change this character to this and that. But we don't ask for a writer's credit. No. We go to the director, and all the time the directors like fall apart, like at least once or twice during a movie. And you have to bring them in and be like, okay, remember at the beginning you thought this movie was about this and blah, blah, blah. And we have to remind them of. And then also we're like going to them and be like, dude, you're tired. You need to get a take of that because that actress is like fucking phoning it in. Like, it was crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're doing those things, but we're not asking for directing credit, right? So, but everybody thinks that like they can give us producing credit because the people aren't clear on what we do. So we have to be clear on what we do. And that's why I always said, well, you're a filmmaker. You are creatively involved in the execution of this project, period. And that's it. So like, that's, I feel very strongly about that. But a lot of people, like, you're just, because if people say, oh, an executive producer might be someone who just gives money, maybe. But then you start getting into people giving away credits, like managers of talent. I want a producer credit. And you're like, really? Why? Because you manage somebody because you made a phone call to this person. That's your job, dude. Anyway, there's a whole thing. You know, you have to be. The short answer is too late. Is you're a filmmaker. You're a filmmaker first, no matter what. Producers are filmmakers, and you have to get clear on what a producer does.
Thank you. You did answer my question. I just want to make sure that this is not my vision of a producer. I just wanted to to ask.
But I'm not mad at you. But a lot of people think this. A lot of people are like, you're just like the money.
God, I've talked myself blue in the face about this. I could cry now just hearing it come out of your mouth. Thank you so much. Yes.
This is what it is. I mean, like, we've been at it long enough. You know what I mean? To be like, it's all about perception, but you know, just gotta just like own it.
Question about so you mentioned earlier that when you did Project Greenlight, I'm in Thrasher's class as well. So when watching it, every time Lisa would pause the thing and comments on it, I'd be like right with her. I'm like, yeah. But when I noticed you said you made a comment saying like the way they painted you, it made it like it made it bad for you, and then you luckily got the changer deal. But I was wondering, when that stuff happens and you're trying to push diversity within the development and production of a film, and they keep trying to push you back, or they keep trying to, you know, make it seem like you're being difficult, what motivates you to keep going and to keep pushing?
That's a great question. Oh my God. And your little face is so adorable. You know that you look like you're 10, and you are going to love that. When you get to be my age, you're going to love it. Look, you know, I don't know. This is where, remember, it might get a little, it's going to take a turn and go into spirituality, but like, I've always known since I was a kid that this is what I was supposed to do. Growing up in New Jersey, I always knew that films could change the world. Always knew. And I always knew that the lack of representation was never okay. You know, and not just for women of color, but I remember being really, really upset and angry about, because my family's uber Christian, we're AME, right? And then, but we're from Trinidad, so like some of my family was into Yoruba religion. And I always got sent to Catholic schools because I had disciplinary problems, right? So I had gotten, my first school was a Jewish school called Temple Emmanuel, right? So I got God all over. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I believe in higher power, 100%. And I just remember always being, even just as a kid, being like, how it was unfair. Like, even like how, like in church, they would talk about, you know, homosexuality. And I knew that I was like, this don't make no kind of fucking sense. You know what I mean? And looking to the left and to the right and being like, what? And I knew that like, if we could tell a story so that the preacher man that like, and I will even say like my parents, like they've chilled out in their older age because like, and I'm straight, but it was very much like, it was not okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was a real riff. Like, it was not fucking okay for you to talk that way about, anyway, I'm getting a little on a soapbox, but I'm just saying, like, it was my birth. Like, it was, as a kid, I knew what was right and what was wrong. And I knew that stories were the way to change people's minds, period. So I don't give a fuck. Like, my first movie was But I'm a Cheerleader. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, But I'm a Cheerleader, Stranger Inside. Like, every single movie that I've made has been about the people that like the outsiders. I absolutely identify as an outsider. Absolutely. And I did it as a kid. So there's no, it's in my DNA. There's no way that anyone could make me do something different. It's not, it's in my DNA. It's who I am. Like, I will tell you, the worst people ask me, they're like, if all of a sudden there was a wand and there was equality all the way around, everybody had equanimity, there was no more bias and everything, I wouldn't know what to do. Like, and I mean that. Like, I'm so identified as a fighter and as the other, I would not know what to do. And I think that's when I was like, oh, I better start crafting, because my job, you know what I mean? Like, that's all that I'm supposed to do here is like, my job is to fight. You know what I mean? So like, that's it. But like, and people saying now, you know, and I want to be clear of like with Project Greenlight, I am grateful for it because it was hardcore. But at the end of the day, I'm like, you think I'm a bitch? You think I'm formidable? You think I'm aggressive? Okay, I will assume that position And you know what you're not going to treat me as? You're not going to treat me as a fucking scrub. You're not going to treat me as somebody that you can sort of like this, because I'm like, I will lean into that reputation and be like, wow, she's really funny and nice, but I will not suffer a fucking fool ever. I will not do it. I will not, you know what I mean? Like, and I'll be like, I won't do it. Like, you know what I mean? And that, but I'm also older. Do you know what I mean? I'm also grown. I'm going into like I literally tell them, like, I have 12 years, right? I'm like, when I turn 60, I want to have a lot of money, and I want to be able to have somebody else run the company, and I want to be like the fairy godmother. Do you know what I mean? I want to be Oprah to Ava. You know what I mean? Like, and that's a lot. 12 years, girl, I better figure that out. Okay. I'm a little behind, but like, that's what I want. Like, I want to be like, I'm going to go off to San Tropez with like my future ex-husband and like leave, you know, and be like, yes, we're going to make movies for all the people. Huzzah! That's all I want.
Thank you. But you're like really like inspirational to me. So I strive.
That's sweet. Oh, that's thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Tell me everything.
Well, hello, my name is Mauricio.
Mauricio.
I'm in Professor Thrasher's class, and so my question is like, we did this assignment, and my professor would know of like, she would give us something to read in terms of like lawyerish stuff, like stuff behind the scenes.
That's great. Lawyerish. I love how you said that. That sort of stuff. I'm like, okay, Mauricio.
It's on detail.
I'm gonna at least try. So she gives us something to read, and she always tells us like 3 things that we didn't know before, or things that surprised you. So one of the things that I've read, and it kind of it blew me back, and I was wondering if you experienced this, that you could blur a logo out in your film, and if you want that company's logo to pay you money for a product placement, and they were like these producers lawyerish, and I was wondering if you ever experienced that, like where you had to change the shot that was like a director wanted this particular brand on a shirt, and were there ever instances where you had to sort of take the shirt out, or how does that work?
You know what's so interesting? Remember, again, when I started making movies, and Lisa, you can talk to this too, like I'm gonna say like 99, like not like the late 90s, you know what I mean? It's very different than now, because remember, we didn't have social media, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have whatever, TikTok, whatever the fuck you call it. We didn't have none of that, right? You know what I mean? So, and now you guys are very clear in fair use, right? So fair use is something that's very and celebrity. Remember, we talked about how like celebrity is their own thing now, like, you know. But when we were when I'll say for myself, when I was coming up, like we would make sure, like when we do those location scouts of like, look, we better not have McDonald's, have the scene happen with the McDonald's logo in the background. Let's frame it out or do something like that. You know what I mean? So like I knew not to do that, but I also knew when I would get location contracts, or if I was shooting something, I would make sure that I would have the release. I've never had a problem where someone was like, my logo is in there and you got to blur it out, because I'm a good producer. I don't let that happen. You know what I mean? Like that's like a no-go. I do love product placement, and you never hold them hostage. Like, we're going to blur it out unless you pay us X amount of dollars. It never works that way. At least it never did for me. What they'll do is I'll say before I shoot, and I'm like, hey, Shailene Woodley's going to be in this movie, and she can wear, you know, the Wu-Tang Clan shirt. Do you know what I mean? Or she's going to wear blah, blah, like, you know, L'Oreal, her makeup is going to be MAC. Like, do you want, like, you know, I can get that stuff for free. Or like, they're going to be jogging. What sort of water do you want them to hold? You always get that stuff for free, like product placement. Nike oftentimes would give like lots of swag and product, and sometimes money. They did that terrible basketball movie that was Coca-Cola. That was just it was like orange and blue. I want to say Tiffany Haddish was in it. That was I remember that it was like Uncle Buck, maybe like it was a terrible movie, but all financed by Coke or product placement.
I will kind of weigh in a little bit here. I know that was probably in that fair use video that I assigned for you guys to watch while we're in quarantine. And maybe I should rethink that, because as you know, I am not a big proponent of using fair use.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's for scripted stuff, it's ridiculous. Why even run the risk, get a license, or use something else? That's my theory for scripted.
Even on the street, like if something is in like
No.
like that's what I'm saying. Like on the
Bus
street.
drives by, billboard in the background, all that is fine for fair use. But up front or water bottle, no. And I wouldn't put stuff in there that could potentially trip you up down the road, because it's better to ask up front, get permission, because when you ask on the back end, they hold you over the barrel for a lot of money.
100%, you're done. She's absolutely and unequivocally correct. Right, you know what I mean? As you all know, like absolutely. That is, I was really speaking more to like, I always ran into it when you're outside doing driving shots or you're walking and talking. But if I have something we call it Greeking it out, right? You oftentimes look at old movies, you'll see like a piece of white tape like over the tent, you know what I mean? And like whatever, like it's just, you have to obscure it. We used to do that all the time. Because you don't want to invite it, because the one time they're like, sorry, you certainly don't do it with music. Like that's where it's like a deal killer. Like people like logos on shirts and stuff like that, you might get away with. You will never get away with music. Like in the background, if somebody has something on or you're talking and the neighbor turns on Fight the Power, it's like, stop shooting, go turn it. Because they will be like, is that my song?
Right.
So we're like, sync, license, master, performance, all that, yeah.
But now docs is a little bit of a different realm. You've got a little bit more flexibility there. And I think your audience, if you have to blur something out on a t-shirt or something, your audience is more forgiving. They don't really care. But blurring in scripted, unless it's part of the kind of concept or the style of the film, that's not going to fly.
I have another question,
My opinion.
if it's okay to ask another question. So my question for Effie and also for Professor Thrasher, so as both of you are working for representation and both of you worked in the industry and know big studios, how they work. For example, I think there are a lot of movies that misrepresent people, or like they're trying to represent people, but they misrepresent them. For example, I was talking to my sister earlier today, and I was mentioning like when Aladdin, the live action Aladdin came out, I was so excited to see how they represented like the Arabian culture. So I'm an Arab, so I was so excited to see that.
You're like this. I'm Arab. Just so you know.
Just so you know.
Mohammed, no idea, but go ahead, got it.
So yeah, I was excited. Like I want to see how they represent like the Arab woman Jasmine in the movie, and I was surprised that they did it like Bollywood style. It wasn't like it wasn't like Arabian. They were called like singing Arabian Nights and the Arabian Days, but it wasn't Arabian at all. It was like Bollywood dances and Bollywood style. So I was thinking like big studios like Disney, wouldn't they do a research to tell the difference between the Arabian culture and
interesting. Like who did that movie? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like I mean, it just like it needs to ask someone who knows the difference between the two cultures. Like, is there any filmmakers who know that, or like would they make a research? So how does that work? I don't understand. Like big studios, you pay a lot of money for this film, and you can't really tell the difference between these small things.
That was a total. Can I just tell you? They thought they did such a great job. My friend Jamal, it runs Will Smith's company, like Jamal Watson, like, and he was telling me, like, we're at the Sundance Lab together, we were mentoring, and he was like, Effie, we are killing it. We've researched, we've hired people. We're not doing like these light skin. We're doing like real Arab, or we're making it, like, swear to God, like of the people. Like, I'm telling you, like, they would be heartbroken to hear what you just said. Heartbroken, because they thought that they did such a great job, because Disney wanted the white version of it, and they're like, making sure it's like all the people, like indigenous people, they're going to be real Arab. We're not giving nobody white people and putting them in brown face. Like they were so excited. And I love the fact that you're like, I was like, as someone who's also, I'm like, oh, I thought that was nicely done. You're like, different cultures. I was like, oh, yeah.
Even
I was like,
Jasmine.
I'll be like super happy. She would wait. So, wait, are you saying the dancing style was Bollywood, or like the
like the outfit, the costumes, everything? I mean,
No, I'm sorry. I just will give them low key shade just to be like.
I mean,
hey,
it's not only about Aladdin. For example, there's like the Community show, like the TV show Community.
Yeah.
They have like an Indian character who's playing a Palestinian role. And when they speak Arabic, they speak like in the formal Arabic, which no one speaks right now. And it's like, come on, you guys! Like, just bring someone who can speak Arabic, or like bring an actor who speaks Arabic, and just let him play that role. Like, isn't there?
This is why. Yes, I agree. This is why I'm telling you, you are brilliant, and don't ever, 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 ever assimilate, man. Because like I'm saying, even like these are Black folks. You know that we're like, we did it. We did. We gonna make this happen. It's like Black and brown. We in this together. Swear to God, like Jamal, like they would be mortified. But like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, this is where, like, in my website, where it's like you can't make something about us without us, and that's where I'm like, I will not do any movie where if it's like if we're doing a film, like that's why I travel to Morocco and like wherever. If I'm shooting someplace, I got to like South Africa, and I'm like, look, I need to get somebody from there because I'm not gonna like even because I'm a woman of color doesn't make me the expert on every culture. It just means like I know Black Jersey people. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can talk about that. That's what I know. But it's so true. And that's why it's so important to be heard from the beginning to the end. Like I agree with you. And I love that. And let me tell you, they do. They absolutely, and there's a woman named Julie Ann Gromit who handles diversity. Is she over at Disney or is she over at she's, I don't know where she's at, but she's massive. And they did, where's the place that did Coco? Was that Pixar? Like she's over, that's Disney, right? That's they did that, right? They spend so much money on making sure that it's correct and that they're of the people that I love that you're like, it's not of the people. I'm the people, it's not of us. Because nobody, that's why you're needed, man. That's why the specificity is everything. To be like, we don't talk like that. Not like how we do. Like I love that. I love it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Effie, one of my grad students who's graduated from Howard is from South Africa. I actually met her in South Africa when I was there in 2008. I was there teaching and with Itty Bitty. And she's back there now producing. So if you need a connect for South Africa,
I totally do. Like I'm doing with a guy named, like literally, I'm in. Like so, like I'm trying to meet everybody that I can, and they're gonna 100%. That's so funny.
I have a question.
Oh yes, I don't know where are you? Oh hi, Alonso.
Hey, how you doing, Effie?
Living the dream.
I'm a huge fan of yours. I just want to say thank you. I believe that your dream is kind of like so important for Hollywood right now. Just like diversity, period, in Hollywood, it's very important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering. So for me, it's kind of like I'm a directing concentration, but I also study foreign languages, and
really.
Yeah, I study Spanish and French. And by the way,
okay, nice. Like the glamour. I was like, okay, you're gonna go. Yeah.
No.
Spanish. I was like, oh, the language of love. Like we need to speak Mandarin. That's what you need to speak. Get over there. Yeah.
Nah, that's a little much for me. But also, if you need a connect for South America, I have. Yeah, NGO, and he makes he just did something with HBO and Vice, and he just they flew down there to film a documentary for him. So if you need a connect, yeah,
I
definitely.
love that. Like I really believe in sharing information. I love that. So you so just really quickly before we move on. So like you like you're a minor in foreign languages? Like what does that mean?
No, I'm a double major. So a film major and then foreign languages. So yeah. And then
So what's your end game?
Like honestly, I don't like I'm starting to realize like I like directing and maybe like documentary making, but also I kind of like the business side of it, and with knowing the languages, it kind of just opens up like a whole playground.
Also, you'd be such a great producer.
And I was thinking that, and that's why I really was like just having like this internal battle of like, oh, I want to be a filmmaker. Of course, I want to be Jordan Peele, but I feel like we have enough Jordan Peeles out there. I feel like we need more representation.
Jordan Peele isn't even Jordan Peele. You're gonna be you can be whatever. Like the world needs you.
Right.
But what's also great about you. Are you fluent in like French and Spanish? Are you like, can you hold your own and shoot
Spanish,
over?
yeah, so Spanish definitely. I've spent like 4 months in like South America, and I'm going to like French Guyana, which is in South America also, and filming a documentary, yeah, with the guy. If you want to get in on it, please like let me know. Like,
I don't do docs because they're for smart people and they take too long.
right.
I'm very clear. But you know what's so great? Like I love what you're doing, because being a narrative American filmmaker that can work in a Spanish speaking or French speaking makes you so fabulous. Like literally go over, like literally you should be going to every festival, because like a foreign festival, because they're gonna be like, oh my God, you can speak to us and you can go talk to the Americans over at like Netflix or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's huge. Because what's so I wish like if I were better, I would spend my time learning another language. And I really feel that I should have learned Mandarin in some sort of way, but I think the best that I'll be able to do is maybe become sort of perfunctory at Spanish.
Definitely.
Speak anything else, Lisa? Do you speak anything?
I studied Russian, German, French, and Italian. Living in LA for 25 years, I can understand Spanish. I really want to study Spanish. I love languages. I pick them up really fast, but I'm here most of the time. But I've been doing films outside of the country. I did Kosovo and Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. So I'm starting to branch out a little bit more. But
you, good job. I'm just jealous.
And also, Effie, I have been to Sundance. I missed you at this year's Sundance. I was there. Yeah. So yeah, I've been to a couple of film festivals, but I still don't know exactly.
Foreign film festivals, they would eat you up.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm saying. As a, you know what I mean? They're gonna be like, oh my God, you're an American and you can talk to me. You know what I mean? They'll like.
Yeah, definitely. So what like would you suggest as like a career path, like for like languages and kind of knowing that?
I think directing and producing is really important, because if you're able to understand if you're able to communicate, because at the end of the day, even though our biggest export is our stories and our movie stars, right? It's film. Like our content is like, that's how they learn about us, right? That's how they go. Like whenever you ever traveled any place, like, hey, soul brother, are they start speaking to you in like rap? You know what I mean? You're like, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, you know what I mean? Like that's because that's travels of us, right? You know?
Yeah.
So I think it would be, and I think they would love. I just know whenever I travel, and I like to travel a lot, I'd see like, and we're the only, it embarrasses me a little bit, and I'm embarrassed of myself, is that like we only speak English.
Yeah.
Every other place speaks another language, like
multiple languages.
And that's why I think that America's going to get taken over, because like nobody's thinking about, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, we better learn how to talk to somebody, because like that's like us not knowing numbers or schedule. We're like, we don't know what they're saying about us. You should probably, you know.
Like it's really tragic, because it's like you can't get mad if like, oh, blame other people for immigrants for taking jobs, but it's like, well, if they could provide that service to a whole country, then why aren't they?
Yeah, but like this is the whole immigrants, like the Pilgrims were immigrants. And don't get me started on my colonial,
Right.
you know.
Right. Yeah. I use that in quotations, by the way, also.
Exactly. I know you did. I was like this. I was like.
But yeah, thank you so much for being here, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, we're on the topic of languages. I definitely need to give a shout out to my former student, Yana Wave. Yana is calling in, or not calling, internet. Hi, I'm dating myself. Yana's zooming in to us from Russia.
Oh, wow. Hi, Yana.
Hi, I actually have some questions for you too. I was just waiting.
That is good. I have a 4 o'clock, just so you know. So just so you know, yeah. Go ahead, Diana.
It's actually 1:30 a.m. right now, and April.
It looks very dark where you are. It looks very dark. It looks like you should be in bed.
But I'm fine. So at first, I wanted to say thank you very much for being just you today with us. I'm very excited because when I was an exchange student at Lisa's classes, we were watching the Greenlight too, and I was a huge fan of yours, and I'm so excited to see you right now. And so I was curious for some kind of your prediction on when do you think the industry will actually treat all the people equally? Like, I mean, if it happens, at all? Like, when do you think it can actually happen in the future?
You know what? I don't think, with love in my heart, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. You know what I mean? I don't. I think, because here's the thing, and I'm going to get a little deeper. You know what I mean? It's human nature. It's human nature to have the haves and the have-nots. It's human nature. I don't know of a society, except maybe some like indigenous, like Native American communities, where like it's really set up on equality. But then, like, I don't know, I still think even like some of their societies maybe are matriarchal, but it's just not. I think it's human nature. And I think that when money is involved, that, you know, puts a whole other added effort. What I do think is that we can turn the tides. I do think in my lifetime, I'm going to see it swing the way of the other being the leading voice, like women, people of color, LGBTQ, all of that, like, you know, that sort of inclusivity, the inclusive and diverse being the dominant voice is what I can see happen. And then I think it's probably going to, but like, just because we're underrepresented doesn't make us better. Like, you know what I mean? Doesn't make us better people. It just means that like we're struggling for something that's righteous. But like, it's human nature. I mean, like, I just, anyway, that's my, I don't, it's a human nature thing.
I was just thinking, like, those white old men will die someday, you know?
It doesn't matter, it's money. And then you're gonna have maybe like, and I'm gonna talk against like, let's talk about like the music game, right? The music, right? Where we have a lot of people of color making millions of dollars in music. Are they good people? When I say good, are they inclusive? No. Are they misogynistic? Yeah. It's money, it's power. Like, it's all that is. That's what I'm saying. It's power. Like, old white men, you can say, have the power, but like, absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. That quote is real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's why I say, like, people are like, you know, women and people of color, and I'm like, we just don't have it right now. Hopefully we'll be better human beings, but like, do I think we're gonna all of a sudden, by us showing up and being like, we're women and people of color and LGBTQ and people with disabilities, we're gonna be great? No, we're gonna be like, because we're gonna be that, I call it new money. We're gonna be like, what? This is real power? We got this? I can, you know, people lose their minds. Like, I mean, I hope, you know, I mean, that's my feeling. I don't want to be a downer. I mean, like, that's why I definitely feel we want to level the playing field. I definitely feel we can level, but like level it, but it's never going to be kumbaya.
I at least just think that we don't have to, like, I can imagine myself fighting all my life, but that's the thing, like, at least for example, like a salary gap, I don't want to fight for just having the same amount of money than another man.
Well, that's different. I can say, like, so like the parity, the wage, I do think at that question, I do think I'm going to see that close 100%. I definitely feel there's going to be a moment where like, it's not okay to be racist anymore. Like, cause you'll get shamed, like you'll get outed. You know what I mean? About being racist, if you're Me Too'd or sexist or whatever. Eventually that is going to keep coming up and people have to talk about money. And I think your generation will be like, well, how much did you, my thing is like, well, how much did you make on that movie? Well, I made 50,000. Oh, I made 70. What? You know what I mean? Like, you have to share that knowledge. And then anyway, so I think that's going to definitely change things because it's being shameful and secretive about money and deals is what keeps us small and broken apart. I think that's going to change.
Actually, you're the first person that we have to talk about money out loud, because when I was on Russian film or like music video sets in LA, only Russians were talking about what money they get like for working on set. Americans didn't do this, and I was ashamed of Russians for this because I was like, oh my god.
I think that's so interesting. Break that down. Like, whenever, like, break it down. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, the same way of that whole thing of like, you don't talk about money, race, or religion, right? Like, that's not polite in America. That's not polite conversation. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, if it's like, well, what are our biggest problems right now that we're fighting about and going to war and killing each other over? Race, religion, and money, right? You know what I mean? So I'm like, so maybe if we talked about it, you know what I mean? And it really is, because it's like, and this makes sense. Like, I know, and that's the thing as a producer for myself, I always give people my word where I'm like, look, everybody gets paid the same thing. And you and I both know, and if you don't know, you'll know on a movie. By the end of like, you're doing a 6-week movie, by the end of week 3, if you don't know what everybody else in your position is making, you're not a good person. Like you shouldn't be in film, right? You know what I mean? Everybody should know, but like, well, how much is your kit rental? What are you doing? And that's why I know, I'm like, because I knew I found out in a minute. I'm like, wait, this PA is making 250, I'm making 150, and I'll be quick to be like, well, you know, you'll figure it. Like, I think that'll change. I think we should just talk about it, not brag about it, but to talk about it.
But how would you manage to ask like your colleagues about their salaries? Weren't you shy or something?
No, you get, well, I mean, like, not when you get, well, here's the thing. I've been screwed over so many times that like you can have your pride or you can have an answer, you know. And I tell people, and I usually come up first where I'm like, look, I'll tell you, because people are always like, well, how much did you make? Like Netflix is big. They're like, well, how much are you making on that Netflix movie? And I'm like, I'll tell you, I'm making 5% of the net, and they give me another 5%. And they'll be like, oh, really? And then they'll feel compelled to share and be like, oh, well, I'm getting 10% of the net. And then I'll be like, what? You know what I mean? Wait a minute. Because then we have something like, because then I'll be like, well, they told me this, because that's the thing. Because at the end of the day, it's like, well, you're paying James this amount and you're paying me this amount. Why is that? They're going to be like, oh my God, that was such a typo. What I meant to pay you was this. Or they have to come up with an answer, because at the end of the day, they don't want to be outed for being sexist, racist, or a misogynist.
Right. Oh, thank you very much. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, were you actually facing some people with the question like, why am I getting less money than that person?
A lot of times this happens. Like, you know, who's doing this a lot is Octavia Spencer. Just look at, like, she's the one as an actress, like Jessica Chastain. Like, she talks to people, and like other actors who are her colleagues went and got her more money. They were like, how come you're paying Jessica Chastain twice as much as me? And I fucking won an Oscar. And I'm headlining this, and I've been around longer than her. You know what I mean? Or like when they have, who was like the movie, like there was a Mark Wahlberg and something else movie that they had to go back and reshoot, but the girl was getting less money than him. And
the L Word, the one straight guy character was getting paid more than every one of the ensemble cast, including Jennifer Beals. And then he was caught, actually, the guy they replaced him with, he was caught with a minor. So he was fired. They had to reshoot the first episode. But even the guy they replaced was still getting paid higher than all of them.
Yeah. That's just
It was Michelle Williams who was on that Wahlberg movie, and they were reshooting because of the Kevin Spacey scenes, right? So
exactly, and that's when they were like, well, wait a minute. She's like, I'm Michelle Williams, and like, I'm getting how much money? And like, and what I thought was really interesting, all the money in the world, right? But what's interesting is that Mark Wahlberg wasn't necessarily helpful. He got shamed into doing the right thing, because it was like, really, dude, you're getting paid $1 million and she's getting paid nothing, like, and you're not going to do anything. Like, that's the thing.
I actually have another question.
Yeah, and you know what, you guys, it's 3:43. I have a 4 o'clock, so I'm sorry, I can come back, but I might have to wrap it up.
No problem.
No problem.
No, go ahead, Abigail. Paige.
I am really thankful for what you're doing, because I'm adopted by a white father, and he's gay, and it's been really up. Just with the
I can't hear you. Can you speak into the thing?
Yeah, so just for the fact that my father was gay and we were an interracial family, we were discriminated against, even with a school that said, come here and we'll respect you. Right? For a long time, my father had to, he sued the school 1-for-1 and he won. But I'm just really happy, because back when I was a child, I was like watching all these films. And if I was being personal, I've always felt that maybe I shouldn't be black, because all these kids are like calling me an Oreo, meaning I'm white on the inside and I'm black on the outside. But now looking at films today, I'm like, oh, it's changing, and I see this shift. And so being part of Gamechanger now, I'm like asking, like, is there sort of like a sort of difference in the financiers that you would see maybe in studios like HBO or this, I read an article saying that you're selecting investors who know your vision and who know what you want. And so like what's the
Oh my gosh, you know what? I always forget to talk about this. So thank you for this. Because one of the things at Gamechanger, we have an investor group, is our investors need to be as diverse as our content. So one of the things that we do have is that we're bringing in women, people of color, LGBTQ, and people with disability. We're bringing in their money. That's really important. You know what I mean? Because once again, until they can get to the table and start financing things, that's also how they learn how to make investment and all of that. And they're able to come up on the scene. So it's really, really important for our investor group where, we're going after, and for me, I'm going to talk about what I know, like I'm going after that Black money where I'm like, for my investor group, in order to go in to this investor group, you have to have and it seems like a lot, but it's not really a lot if you're an investor, like $250,000 to be a part of our investor group. I just need you're going to pay a subscription fee and you're going to give $250,000 when I give you a movie that you like. You know what I mean? You might put $100,000 into this one, 50 into this one, and you know what I mean? We might break it up, but you need to be able to play with that so I can walk you through how these movies are made. So at the end of the day, you will be invested in 3 movies, let's just say, and you will be like demystified of how a movie is made. Because a lot of times with with new money or people of color or whatever, women like coming in and being like, all right, like this is all that I have, but I don't want to be taken advantage of. We're offering that safe space. And I do find, but here's the thing, that's what we're doing on that, that indie, like Gamechanger investment group tip. Investors, it's still like, the investors like of studios and things like that. There's a lot of like a perfect world is coming from China, right? You know what I mean? You have to know like who's like, that's like China has money that are sometimes investing in things. I do know that MBS is Saudi is looking to come in, but like people are like not having his money, but that's going to be only a matter of time before people are like, give it to me on the DL. You know what I mean? Like that's about to happen. But but we're looking for domestic people, domestic US to come in and give that. But like it's in also Nigerian money or like Africa money where I'm like, you want to come in and work on American movies? Like this is what it is. Because at the end of the day, in the studio system, they're getting funded from like really like the China money, Chinese money, and then also like from Saudi. There's certain places that they're getting their big chunks of money. But at the end, even though it's cultural money, they're still only propagating that sort of, white is right, male sort of like bullshit, sort of agenda. I think it's changing a bit now, but at the end of the day, I know we haven't gotten into foreign sales where they're like, what sales? Like, you know what I mean? Like white men, like Black movies don't sell overseas. And you're like, that's a lie that we keep propagating over and over and over again. And if we can show actually people of color movies and women-led movies do make money, then it would sell overseas and then possibly be able to get investment, in those movies.
All right.
Hi, I have a question.
You have 12 minutes to your next call. We should probably.
Oh.
Who could have just said something? I don't know.
My name is Vera. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm trying to find your face. Oh, you don't have a face, Vera.
Sorry. Well, I'm here in Chicago. I'm about to. Effie, it's so great to hear you and see you, and just I'm a fan.
Thank you.
I'm not a member of the college. I heard about this conversation on Facebook, so I have a question.
Tell me everything.
I am prayerfully about to produce a musical, a micro budget musical.
Sorry. Prayerfully. I like
Yes.
it. Good job. Okay.
It's a micro budget, and my question is, what would be the very first thing you would do when it's ready, complete? Are you a fan of film festivals, or should I just attempt to maybe get it to Ava's company or Netflix?
Well, that's so interesting because now the film festival market's going to be different because of COVID, right?
Right.
So everything's going to be digital. Like festivals, that's where I made a lot of my jump offs from all my movies, was like Sundance and the film festival, and we got that critical acclaim and we won, and then the distributors came. So I think the festival is really a good way to go, just to be honest, because that gets you outed in a beautiful way to everybody at the same time. So hopefully there could be like a bidding war, or like all people are seeing it at the same time. If you give it to like Netflix is going to see it and pass on it, and then you're going to like Netflix, you're going to give it to Hulu, and then you know what I mean, just go from like one place to another. Where it's
Right.
like, you do a festival, you get to show it all in one fell swoop.
Okay.
But the thing is, I don't know how it's going to work.
Right, because the whole landscape is going to be different, like you
Exactly.
said.
The whole landscape is going to be totally different. Yeah.
Well, okay. I appreciate your answer, and I'll be thinking about where to go from here. Thank you.
Awesome.
I just have to give one shout out to Taylor Spears, my research assistant. Taylor, wave.
Hi.
Hi, Taylor. You're at the very bottom. Hi.
Taylor just texted me and said, "Can I ask you a question offline another time?"
To you or to me?
To me to ask to you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, sure.
Or do we want to squeeze? I know you need a break between this and the meetings, and you've got 9 minutes.
Okay, so I'll ask it really quickly.
Okay.
So a couple semesters ago, we had a discussion in my TV writing class about representation in the writing room and how different cultures write for characters of color. And the consensus in the room was that if people of color aren't invited into these rooms, the stories still have to be made. And my feeling is, of course, yes, but they should be made correctly, to Mohammed's point. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
I don't understand what the question was. I mean, what was it? Was it?
The question is,
yeah.
Yes. So what's your opinion on different cultures writing?
I think they should do it. You know what I mean? Like, and this is where I'm going to be a total hypocrite, and I recognize this. And this is where, and this is a terrible question to go out on because it's a hypocritical question. Answer that I'm going to give. Sorry, so another question. Answer that I'm going to give. So I believe that no, I think that we should always have people, like, you can't make something about us without us. If you're doing something that's Arab, you better have them in the room. Black, better have them in the room. Gay, better have them in the room. You know, they don't have to be all of them in the room, but they better be there to, you know, to be able to speak on it. Period. That's what I believe. Now, here's my hypocritical thing. As an artist, I think when you're a true artist, and I think filmmakers are artists, that sometimes art transcends race, gender, and culture. I just believe it. And by this saying that, like, and this is where I'm a hypocrite, because I remember back in the day, Bill Duke did a movie called Cemetery Club, which was an old white lady Jewish movie, right? It's about a bunch of Jewish women who were like, their husband died, and he directed this movie, and it was quite good. Now, this is where I'm like, but he is not of that culture. But I do consider him an artist. Now, here's the other thing where I also, because I talk about this quite a bit, like when people are like, Effie, I want to, why, and where I feel like I've gone into several meetings at like CAA, William Morris, Gersh, and they're wanting to give me their projects, right? And I tell them, do not give me a project that's written by someone who's not of the culture that the script is about. So therefore, do not give me a movie that's about a woman that's written by a straight white dude. Do not give me a movie. And they consistently try to do that to give you culture. Like, you know, if you want a black woman to, like, Green Book, you know what I mean? Of being like, we wanted a black person. That's what Marshala Ali and Octavia Spencer were there for. That was called cover, right? You know what I mean? And to be like, I'm not okay with that at all. But I am okay with someone of color doing something about white people. And here's why. It's because that we've had to be bilingual and code switch all our lives. We know them more than they know us because we had to make it in their world. Do you know what I'm saying? So like that's where it's a little bit of, for me, where it's like, I'd be like, it's a different thing. Because here's the other thing too, where I say there are exceptions to the rule, but 9 times out of 10, I can do, like, I know about white communities just as, not as much, but like as much as like Black communities. I've always been the only Black face in an all white place, period. Right. But then, but I will say there's, whoever saw The Last Black Man in San Francisco? Great movie. You should watch that movie. It's amazing. It's amazing. White guy directed it. It's great. But you know what made him different is because he actually was of us. Like he lived in that community, knew them. He wasn't an outsider. And a Black guy did co-write it, but he's been there. But he also had a Black producer, but like he was of that community. He wasn't culture covered. He was of that culture. Like also, what was it? Terrence Howard, Hustle and Flow. Right? You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to be like, he's about as Black as they come, right? You know what I mean? There's certain people where I'm like, he knows, like, you know, it works. Like he totally gets it. He gets it, in my opinion. I love Craig. He gets it. But most times in Hollywood, they don't. And they think because they are the masters of everything, they can write about whatever. And I'm like, you can't fucking write about whatever. You can't talk it, like do the dialogue of a Black woman when you are a white guy living in Malibu and grew up in the Palisades. You don't know anything about us but what you see from other white men on TV telling you what we sound like, because you don't know us.
Yeah, it's unauthentic, and it does the art a disservice, in my opinion.
100%. So that's where it's a little like, you know what I mean? It's a little messy on my part, because I'm like, art transcends. Like if you're a true artist, you'll be able to do whatever you want to do, and it totally works. But there's not a lot of artists out there. Like I gotta say, in Hollywood, like people think they're artists, but they're not. But anyway, that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you.
I think that we need to let Effie go now. And thank you so much, Effie. I will call you next week. I have some names to pass on to you for YouTube and South Africa and stuff.
Please do. And give them my email too. I mean, the class, you can give them my email, you know, if they, I mean, I'm not going to respond in a timely manner. So just to be clear, but like you absolutely have the email, and like, you know, we can have an exchange if I'm not going to be a flake, which is possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.